Fresh out of college, you became the stand-in lover for a stunning female CEO. Throughout your time together, she guarded her virtue for the sake of her white moonlight. But as the day of his return from abroad finally approached, your boss coldly decided it was time to break things off. However, instead of playing the victim, you didn't take her seriously at all. On the contrary, you completely breached her defenses that very night. What she remains blissfully unaware of, though, is that her inner sanctum had already been thoroughly conquered by you. When the white moonlight returns, he's going to be absolutely floored. This plot is definitely not going according to the script. At this moment, Zhang Yueyue exhaled a long, heavy sigh after her meeting. She had tried to dump you 4 or 5 times already, yet every single attempt proved to be utterly futile. The first time her first kiss was snatched away. The second time she was completely exposed to your gaze. The third time your wandering hands explored every inch of her body. The fourth time you broke through the back door. By the fifth time, even the front gate couldn't escape your grasp. This chaotic escalation made the control freak CEO feel deeply uneasy, though she couldn't quite put her finger on why. Xiao Jibo is on the verge of returning to the country, and now Brother Mu has truly devoured her heart and soul. But the mere thought of you actually leaving sent sharp, painful spasms through her heart. She was utterly bewildered by her own conflicting emotions. Just at that critical moment, Zhang Yueyue's phone began to vibrate. Seeing the name Xiao Jibo flash on the screen, Zhang Yueyue hesitated. For the first time, she wavered between you and her long-lost love. After a long, agonizing pause, she finally steeled herself and answered the call. Hello, Jibo. Yueyue. I'm coming back to the country tomorrow. Do you have time to come pick me up at the airport? I'll try my best to clear my schedule. Yueyue, what's wrong? You don't sound very happy. No, you're just imagining things. I'm still buried in work. So let's leave it at that for now. The moment she clicked the phone shut, Zhang Yueyue realized her palms were drenched in sweat. In an instant, a look of total confusion washed over her face. Meanwhile, you were currently lugging 2 massive burlap sacks, standing right in front of a luxury villa shouting, Mom, Dad, your son is back to raid the pantry again. Yueyue is craving giant crabs and spicy crawfish. Got any of those in the stash? The moment those words echoed through the entrance, Zhang Dongsheng and Li Qingya's eyes twitched in unison. Their hearts collectively skipped a beat. Damn it, that son-in-law is back again. If Zhang Yueyue ever witnessed this bizarre scene, she would be absolutely shell-shocked, because these 2 seniors are none other than her own biological parents. Right after you signed that contract with Zhang Yueyue, you tracked down her parents' private residence. Now whenever Zhang Yueyue craves a gourmet feast, you head straight to the Zhang estate to raid the kitchen, under the guise of looking after their daughter for them. As for why Papa and Mama Jiang actually accepted you as a son-in-law, it's purely because your skin is thicker than a fortress wall. Staring at the uninvited guest standing at his door, Papa Jiang asked with a huff of annoyance, Why are you back here already? Watching his precious prized cabbage get uprooted by a pig was still a very bitter pill for him to swallow. Dad, how can you say that? I'm just here to check on my favorite in-laws. Mom, it's been ages. I've missed you dearly. Wow, you look even more radiant. Oh, stop it. You naughty child, why are you speaking such blunt truths? Mama Jiang replied, her face beaming with delight, seeing his wife behave so cheaply for a few compliments. Papa Jiang's mouth wouldn't stop twitching in frustration. Noticing the involuntary muscle spasms on Papa Jiang's face, your expression shifted to one of sheer panic. You frantically pulled out your phone and started tapping away. Hello, 911, my dad is having a seizure. The address is... Then you jogged forward, gently rubbing the old man's back to help his breathing, muttering under your breath the whole time. Easy now, take it easy. Don't go having a stroke on me. This son-in-law is honestly too much of a character. Before Papa Jiang could even process what was happening, Mama Jiang was already clutching her stomach, howling with laughter. Mom, how can you laugh at a time like this? I'm genuinely worried about Dad. Dad, you still with us? You protested against Mama Jiang's lack of seriousness, before turning back to stare at Papa Jiang with mock concern. All right, I give up. I shouldn't have complained about you at all. From now on, whenever you feel like swinging by, just come right on in. Your chaotic performance was so absurd that even Papa Jiang was caught between tears and laughter. He had no choice but to wave the white flag and surrender. Heh, that's the spirit, Dad. Keep that smile on your face. They say laughter keeps you young. If you keep grinning like that, you might just reverse age back into a teenager. You little rascal, you never take anything seriously. So are you only here today because of Yueyue? Obviously, what else? It's not like I have many hobbies. Even my foot massage appointment isn't until this afternoon. Mom, Dad want to tag along your brutal honesty. Left the elderly couple completely speechless. After all, what kind of good son-in-law casually invites his in-laws to a foot spa? Fine by me. You're cooking lunch then after a quick nap. We'll all go together. Mama Jiang beamed at you, looking more satisfied with her son-in-law by the second. No problem at all. Oh, by the way, what are you two craving for lunch? I'll head out to grab the groceries. After another round of smooth talking, you had the old couple wrapped around your finger and happy as clams. The smiles on their faces hadn't faded for a single moment. Once lunch was over, seeing Mama Jiang preparing to clear the table, you lunge forward and snatch the dishes right out of her hands. Mom, Dad, let me handle the cleanup. Once I'm done, we're heading straight to the spa. Anyway, it's Uncle Wong's place. This kid is perfect in every way, except for that mouth of his. Watching you skillfully scrub the plates in the kitchen, Papa Jiang couldn't help but mutter a mock complaint. Predictably, Mama Jiang instantly jumped to your defense. What's wrong with his mouth? He's charming and knows how to make people laugh. You're just being picky. But tell me he's been with Yue for a whole year now. So why hasn't there been any news about her belly? I'm dying to hold a grandchild already. You're asking me. How should I know? Who knows what's going on in Yue's head? I just hope she isn't still hung up on that brat from the Jung family. I highly doubt it. Even though I have a slight bias against this kid. With a smooth talker like him, how could Yue ever escape? Who knows? The younger generation will find their own happiness. Either way, I've already decided Xiaomo is the only son-in-law for me. Anyone else is completely out of the question. Papa and Mama Jiang continued their back and forth exchange, their every word dripping with absolute approval of you. Sure, you might not have a massive fortune yet, but your character was top tier, plus having only had one platonic romance in college. You perfectly checked every box for their ideal son-in-law. At this moment, the entire Jiang family viewed you with immense favor, while everyone except for the one person kept in the dark, the blissfully unaware Jiang Yue. After all, what kind of sane person visits their in-laws, without their girlfriend even being there to introduce them, and still manages to win them over so completely? Alright, let's get moving, folks. Time for some world-class foot therapy. Having scrubbed the table and kitchen until they gleamed, you invited the elderly couple along without a hint of awkwardness. In the past, the mere mention of a foot massage parlor would have resulted in a hard pass from Mama Jiang. She used to think those places were sketchy at best, but no amount of resistance could withstand your silver tongue. After dragging her there once or twice, Mama Jiang had actually become a huge fan of the hobby. Before Papa Jiang could even voice a protest, Mama Jiang jumped up with visible excitement, already prepared to head out the door with you. Papa Jiang's eye twitched uncontrollably. He seriously suspected that you were low-key toxic. Forget about taking Mama Jiang to a parlor in the old days. If he had even dared to mention going himself, she would have banned him from the bedroom for 3 days straight. But ever since you appeared on the scene, the chairman of the Shenzhou group couldn't make sense of anything anymore. The son-in-law goes for a foot soak, and the mother-in-law fights him for the bill. Who has ever heard of such a thing? This absurd dynamic was likely unique to the Jiang family. However, Papa Jiang didn't dwell on it for too long. After all, he secretly loved a good foot massage too. The trio soon arrived at a high-end luxury spa, under the manager's incredibly respectful welcome. The two seniors and the youth strolled inside, ignored the bewildered stares. By the time the three of you were lounging comfortably on the beds, the beautiful young technicians were already in position. Hello there. Technician number 66 at your service. Greetings. Technician number 77 ready to serve. Hello. Technician number 88 here for Muge. As the gorgeous young ladies were introducing themselves, a familiar yet jarring voice suddenly snatched your attention. Even Papa and Mama Jiang, ready to relax, couldn't help but look over. The moment you caught sight of the face behind that voice, you were genuinely floored. Xiaomei, why on earth are you here? You're number 88. No way, Li Xiaomei, a top student from Jiangdong University of Science and Technology. And your former flame of 2 whole years, the one where you didn't even get to hold hands. The vibe between you two used to be decent enough. But perhaps because the spark of novelty eventually fizzled out. After a single year, the conversation had completely dried up. Until that summer break between junior and senior year, Li Xiaomei was the one to finally call it quits. You didn't exactly beg her to stay. Since that day, the two of you hadn't crossed paths once. Life happens, she whispered. The pay is just better here. Are you... And these are my parents. The whole family is out for a soak. I'll make sure to book an extra session for you later. Now that is what you call having class. Under the speechless stares of Papa and Mama Jiang, you didn't hesitate for a second to extend the session. The elderly couple actually knew all about Li Xiaomei. After all, when it came to Jiang Yue's partner, they were always keeping a very close watch. No cheating involved. No scandalous betrayals. Just a purely clean and mutual breakup. A rare sight indeed. However, what Papa and Mama Jiang never expected was for your method of help to be this incredibly hardcore. Li Xiaomei didn't seem to harbor any grudges either. She saw this as just another way you were looking out for her. Well then, thank you so much. Your too kind ex-boyfriend. Wait, listening to the casual banter between the two, Papa and Mama Jiang locked eyes, utterly lost for words. As the group settled into some idle small talk, Li Xiaomei, along with technicians 66 and 77, suddenly stared at the son-in-law in pure horror. Bringing your father-in-law and mother-in-law to a foot spa. What kind of god-tier logic is this? More importantly, how the hell is everyone being so civil? After technicians 66 and 77 finally made their exit, Li Xiaomei continued to massage your feet without missing a beat. The elderly couple couldn't shake the feeling that this scene was bizarrely surreal. A guy getting a foot rub from his ex-girlfriend while his in-laws watch? What kind of insane script is this? You suddenly glance at the clock, bolting upright and leaping off the massage bed. You yelped in a panic. Crap, I'm dead. I promised Yue I'd make crab and crawfish mom-dad head home without me. Under the dumbfounded stares of Papa Zhang, Mama Zhang, and Li Xiaomei, you vanished from the spa like a ghost. Honestly, how is that boy's brain even wired? Who knows? Maybe only a wild personality like his can actually handle Yue. Li Xiaomei listened to the conversation between Papa and Mama Zhang, unable to resist stealing one last look at your disappearing silhouette. She sank into a profound, thoughtful silence. When Zhang Yue finally got off work and reached the villa entrance, she couldn't help but rub her growling empty stomach. A mountain of annoying problems had weighed on her mind all afternoon. The lunch her assistant Qin Wanying had brought went almost entirely untouched because she was too busy. President Zhang, I'm sure Brother Mu has already prepared a feast for you. You can eat the moment you step inside. Walking half a step behind Zhang Yue, Qin Wanying noticed her boss's hunger pangs and immediately whispered a comforting reminder in her ear. Hearing Brother Mu's name, Zhang Yue's heart became a tangled mess of conflicting emotions. She tried to come clean several times, but you always managed to cast some spell that shut her down. It made the high and mighty CEO of Shenzhou Group feel utterly powerless. Should she try to confess everything again tonight? No. Yesterday she barely managed to start the conversation before her back door was breached. If she spills the beans completely today, won't she end up pregnant by tomorrow morning? Click. Just as the two reached the villa door, the lock turned and the door swung wide. Zhang Yue entered and began casually shedding her office attire on the sofa, glancing left and right through the living room, before shouting toward you in the busy kitchen. Little Mu, go upstairs and bring me my pajamas. You stepped out after finishing the kitchen cleanup and froze, witnessing Zhang Yue stripped down to nearly nothing and nodded instantly. Coming right up. President Zhang, just give me a sec. You sprinted up the stairs like a madman, grabbing that freshly laundered silk nightgown for her, sensing your presence as you approached the sofa. Zhang Yue kept her eyes glued to a trashy soap opera on the TV, simply extending her arm with a cold, aloof grace. Long accustomed to this routine, you naturally sat beside her, beginning to help her slip into the nightgown. Every accidental touch during the process felt like a secret bonus granted to you by your beautiful boss, though her gaze remained fixed on the melodramatic plot on screen. Zhang Yue's heart was actually racing a mile a minute. Should she really come clean and confess everything to you? The truth was, she didn't want you to walk out of her life. But Xiao Jibo's return was now an imminent reality. Besides, yesterday, she barely got half the words out before her back door was totally compromised. If she goes for a full confession tonight, won't she end up with a permanent bun in the oven by morning? The chaotic inner turmoil of Zhang Yue was something you obviously couldn't perceive, and so under the watchful gaze of her peripheral vision, you couldn't resist one last playful squeeze of those soft, enticing curves. Before you started tidying up the rest of the living room, Brother Mu, let's break up. That all too familiar opening line. Zhang Yue finally couldn't hold back the words any longer. President Jiang, since when were we even dating? I mean, our contract is about to expire, isn't it? Yeah, 6 days left. Xiao Jibo is coming back tomorrow. Did you know that? What's that got to do with me? Whether he returns or not is none of my damn business. Zhang Yue felt a wave of speechless frustration, convinced she was playing a harp to a stubborn ox. Meanwhile, something seemed to click in your mind. As you piped up, oh right, President Jiang, are you ready for your bath? I'll go get the water running for you. Unbeknownst to anyone, the word bath had become the secret code for your late night entertainment. And just as expected, the moment the invitation for a bath was uttered, Zhang Yue completely blanked on her original goal. Confession, what confession? She simply gave a quick nod of approval. Washing together, you bet? You tossed aside the cleaning rag and headed straight for the master suite, gazing at your receding figure. Zhang Yue's lips slowly curled into a soft, tender smile. As for Xiao Jibo, who even is that guy? Doesn't know him, never met him. The next morning, while lost in her dreams, Zhang Yue suddenly sensed something was off. The embrace was familiar. The weight of your legs was familiar, and your steady breathing felt exactly like it did yesterday. What she couldn't pinpoint was that nagging feeling of wrongness, yet it was becoming glaringly obvious. She just couldn't put her finger on what had changed. Right then, that stray hand of yours started acting up again. Zhang Yue's eyes instantly glazed over with a hint of desire. Stop fooling around. Get up and make breakfast already. President Zhang, my internal clock is telling me. It's not quite time to get up yet. I'm starving. Move it, fine. You gave her one last playful squeeze, before yielding to her persistent coquettish whining, slowly pulling yourself away from her. Schlick. As soon as you reached the bedside to get dressed, Zhang Yue instantly realized exactly what was wrong. Her mind raced back, replaying every detail of last night. Wait, that definitely wasn't the back door. The moment you left the room, a panicked Zhang Yue slowly peeled back the duvet, Sure enough, just as she had dreaded, a vibrant red plum blossom was blooming silently on the sheets. It was a crimson testament to how miserably her confession plan had failed. I'm losing my mind. Where did I go wrong? Why is it impossible to just come clean with him? And Jibo is returning today. On the bed, Zhang Yueyue frantically clawed at her silky long hair. She was utterly lost in a state of total bewilderment. Yet she hadn't even realized that regarding the consequences. You had been completely exonerated in her mind. She didn't harbor a single shred of resentment toward you. You had officially claimed her body. Yet she only harbored resentment toward herself for the spectacular failure of her confession. The moment she spotted the outfit you neatly laid out, Zhang Yueyue's lips instinctively curved into a smile. My little Mu really does cherish me. He anticipates my every single need. Just as Zhang Yueyue finished dressing, a loud theatrical shout erupted from the bedroom doorway. Halt, let me handle this. President Zhang, the ground isn't meant for walking. It's meant for you to look down upon from above. Your humble servant shall carry you down. Then I'll leave it to little Mu to carry the queen downstairs. You were only joking around. But Zhang Yueyue's sudden regal response left you totally stunned. Is the shortcut to a woman's heart really through her plumbing? How is it that right after devouring Zhang Yueyue, she's become so bizarrely affectionate? When Zhang Yueyue spotted the black-bone chicken soup on the table, her satisfaction reached an all-time high. Well done, little Mu. The sheer approval in her tone and the pride in her voice were impossible to hide. Even her body seemed to radiate a certain joyful energy. Witnessing this, your heart suddenly skipped a beat in fear. Crap. I think I've dug a hole for myself. It looks like Zhang Yueyue has accidentally fallen for me herself. What the hell am I supposed to do now? Still replaying every moment spent with Zhang Yueyue over the past year, you found that you weren't exactly against the idea soon after breakfast concluded. Her assistant arrived at the villa. President Zhang, we have a meeting at the commercial plaza today. Just as Qin Wanying was about to deliver the daily briefing, the scene unfolding before her caused her to freeze in sheer disbelief. Today, Zhang Yueyue seemed exceptionally radiant and charming. Those phoenix eyes were shimmering with hidden emotions, as if the vast world could only contain her tiny self. You didn't pay much mind to Qin Wanying's shocked reaction. Instead, you smilingly carried Zhang Yueyue to the Maibach. President Zhang, what do you crave for dinner? No need. Xiao Jibo returns today. I'll just grab a quick bite before heading to the airport to pick him up. In a stark departure from the past, this time when Zhang Yueyue mentioned Xiao Jibo, she actually addressed him by his full name. This caused Qin Wanying, who was about to slide into the passenger seat, to freeze. She cast a deep, lingering look at the man still lingering by the front of the car. Something fundamental had definitely shifted. Shenzhou Group Private Hospital. The moment your silhouette appeared at the entrance, the director rushed forward to greet you personally. Young master, you've arrived. That's right. This entire hospital was the birthday gift Mama Zhang gave you last year. Has there been any progress with Yao Yao's condition? Young master Miss Su Yao has almost fully recovered. In 2 or 3 days, she'll be ready to head back to campus. Su Yao was a girl from the same orphanage as you. You were the same age, except she suffered from a congenital heart defect. The second you received the controlling shares of this hospital, you had Su Yao moved into the VIP ward of this private facility. It was thanks to the massive resources of the Shenzhou Group that a perfect heart match was finally found for her. When the director led you into the patient room, Su Yao was leaning against the headboard buried in a book. Yao Yao, the books can wait until you're back at school. Right now, your only job is to recover. Seeing her pushing herself, your brows knitted together in a slight frown. Gosh, big brother, you're so nagging. Do you have any idea how mind-numbingly bored I am here? Reading is the only thing keeping me sane. Despite your obvious good intentions, Su Yao just rolled her eyes and started roasting you. But just as you were about to sink into the sofa, Su Yao seemed to remember something important. She asked, "Hey brother, just how astronomical are the medical bills here? I'll pay you back every cent once I start working." You simply sprawled out lazily across the plush sofa, muttering back with feigned annoyance, "Just focus on finishing your postgrad studies. Money isn't something you need to lose sleep over." You hadn't breathed a word to Su Yao that this entire private hospital was now your personal property. Don't tell me you've become some rich lady's sugar baby. How else did you get so loaded since your senior year? Regarding the true source of your wealth, you had never mentioned a single detail in front of Su Yao. Su Yao's jab was meant as a passing joke, but that casual remark struck Brother Mu right where it hurt. Seeing you suddenly lapse into silence, Su Yao's expression shifted, turning slightly grim. With a hint of uncertainty, she inquired, "Brother, are you actually being kept by someone?" You let out a wicked knowing smirk. Feeling yourself, you boasted, "Relax. This money is 100% legit. I earned it fair and square. Don't overthink it." Seeing that look on your face, Su Yao fell into a deep silence. She knew you only put on that act when you were trying to dodge a subject you didn't want to discuss. To her, this meant you might have actually sacrificed your dignity for her. Choking back tears, Su Yao sobbed, "Brother, you've suffered so much for me. I'll work extra hard to pay you back." Yeah, I get it. Just focus on recovering. That's more important than anything. Stop dwelling on nonsense. You had no way to explain the reality to her. It started as a simple legal contract. But how did it evolve into something so real? Looking at last night, calling it being kept wasn't exactly a stretch. But you didn't give a damn. Given Zhang Yueyue's god-tier looks and body, you were the one winning. Meanwhile, on the other side of Jiangdong, at the Jiangdong International Airport, Zhang Yueyue had been waiting for a full 20 minutes. In the past, she would have been dying to see Xiao Jibo the moment he landed. After all, he was the white moonlight of her cherished memories. But now, Zhang Yueyue felt an overwhelming sense of guilt. She felt like a wife sneaking out to meet a secret lover, even though she had already technically broken things off. She couldn't shake the frantic fluttering in her chest. Weiyue, I'm finally home. Just at that moment, dressed in a high-end designer suit, a somewhat pale-faced Xiao Jibo emerged from the terminal. The second his eyes landed on Zhang Yueyue, he spread his arms wide, anticipating a passionate embrace. However, much to his shock, Zhang Yueyue remained rooted firmly to the spot. Her expression didn't even flicker with excitement. To be fair, when she first heard Xiao Jibo's voice, she actually did feel a spark of genuine joy. At least for that fleeting second, she truly forgot everything else. But the moment she saw his sickly pale complexion, she suddenly recalled a conversation from not so long ago, back when you were whispering together under the covers. You mentioned that a man's kidney deficiency is written all over his face. Pale skin, dry lips, and thinning hair. Wasn't that the spitting image of the Xiao Jibo standing before her? And what causes such a drained, sickly state? Obviously, it's being too active with women. While she, Zhang Yueyue, was faithfully waiting for him. Xiao Jibo clearly hadn't been waiting for her at all. He was no Muga, that's for sure. Xiao Jibo, welcome back. Zhang Yueyue offered a flat greeting while remaining rooted to the spot. Her face an emotionless mask, still standing there. Like a bird with its wings spread, Xiao Jibo froze in an instant, only after a long, awkward moment. Did Xiao Jibo manage to regain his composure, forcing a playful teasing tone? An old friend finally returns home. And I don't even get a hug. Xiao Jibo had no clue what had changed with Zhang Yueyue, nor did he dare to push too hard. The fragile nature of their history could only be masked behind the label of old friends. After all, the current Zhang family was no match for Zhang Yueyue's empire, and Xiao Jibo desperately needed her influence to revitalize. The Zheng clan. Let's skip the embrace. I'd hate for people to get the wrong idea. Let's go. The car is waiting outside. The moment Zhang Yueyue finished speaking, she completely ignored Xiao Jibo's once again paralyzed figure and headed straight for the airport exit. However, the very second Zhang Yueyue turned her back, a flash of pure venomous resentment flickered in Xiao Jibo's eyes. Didn't this woman promise to wait for me and get married? It's only been one measly year, and now she won't even give me the time of day. If the Zheng family didn't need the Zheng's support right now, do you really think I'd abandon my luxury life in the States just to come crawling back to you? Yueyue, how about dinner tonight? No thanks, I already have plans for this evening. Maybe some other time. At this point, Zhang Yueyue's rose-tinted filter for Xiao Jibo was shattering, and she found herself losing all interest in humoring him. Beside her, the assistant Qin Wanying couldn't help but think to herself, once you've had a fun, vibrant guy like Muge, who's going to care about a drained loser like you? The rejection came so abruptly that Xiao Jibo couldn't process it for a moment. However, knowing he couldn't force the issue, he wore a forced smile and quickly shifted the subject. Yueyue, you have no idea how much I suffered in the States. I've come back riddled with ailments. It was a completely bizarre remark from Xiao Jibo, yet it actually managed to stabilize Zhang Yueyue's shattering filter. After all, being genuinely ill was a possibility. Looking at his ghostly complexion, Zhang Yueyue asked with concern, Jibo, what happened to you? Should we head to the hospital for a checkup? Let's go. Noticing Zhang Yueyue's expression suddenly soften, Xiao Jibo's heart skipped a beat. He caught a subtle glimpse of himself in the rearview mirror, and a realization dawned on him, so that's it. Xiao Jibo feigned a composed but weary front, answering with a hint of artificial sorrow in his eyes. There's no need. Yueyue, it's nothing serious. I won't waste any more of your time. Nonsense. You absolutely must get a professional opinion. Head to the group's private hospital. Zhang Yueyue didn't care about anything else. Her white moonlight was sick. She was determined to accompany him and find out what was wrong. The driver nodded, swung the steering wheel around, and sped off toward the Shenzhou Group's private medical facility. Sitting in the passenger seat, Qin Wanying couldn't help but roast him internally. This guy is so dramatic and whiny, he's nothing compared to Brother Mu. The car soon pulled up at the Shenzhou Group's private hospital. By now, Zhang Yueyue was starting to feel a flicker of anxiety. It wasn't because of Xiao Jibo's supposed illness, but because the sun was already starting to set. If she didn't make it back soon, you probably wouldn't wait around for her to have dinner. After all, you'd pulled that move on her plenty of times before. Xiao Jibo noticed the mounting impatience on Zhang Yueyue's face, and felt a surge of secret smugness. She's still just a brainless woman, isn't she? Did she really think I couldn't survive without her? Once the Zhang family's resources were funneled into the Xiaos, He tossed her aside like yesterday's trash. Their contrasting expressions were perfectly captured by Qin Wanying's trained eyes. Expert in micro-expressions, she couldn't help but scoff internally. Is this guy for real? He's delusional. The boss keeps checking her watch, because she's terrified of being late for her real man. Why on earth does he think President Jiang is doing this for him? The group swiftly arrived at the examination room, thanks to Qin Wanying's elite advance arrangements. Every door was wide open with zero wait time, while Xiao Jibo headed inside for a full body scan, and Zhang Yueyue paced outside obsessively checking her watch. Your silhouette casually drifted into view from the end of the hall. Muga, just as you were prepping to head home, you caught the echo of two very familiar voices downstairs. Turning around, you spotted her. Wasn't this Zhang Yueyue who was supposed to be at the airport? Curiosity got the better of you as you strolled over, asking with a nonchalant shrug, "So did that Jibo guy fall ill or something? Did he act all pathetic to make you bring him here?" Your razor-sharp, unfiltered commentary struck another heavy blow against Zhang Yueyue's already cracking white moonlight obsession. Yeah, basically. Wait, Muge. How could you possibly know that? Your expression turned incredibly peculiar, as you gave Zhang Yueyue a wicked knowing smirk. Nothing much, if you don't need me to wait around. I'll head back first to prep your dinner. Let's just head back together in a bit. Zhang Yueyue clearly sensed you were holding something back. But you obviously had no intention of spilling the tea yet. Suddenly, at that exact moment, the heavy door to the examination room slowly creaked open. A doctor in a white coat emerged, supporting a frail-looking Xiao Jibo. Are you the patient's family member? A flash of hesitation flickered across Zhang Yueyue's face, sensing your amused, popcorn-ready expression out of the corner of her eye. She quickly clarified, I'm just a friend. Tell me, doctor, what's wrong? The patient's heart is failing. It's a specific type of cardiac disease. He must avoid any excitement or stress, and needs to be hospitalized under constant careful watch. Xiao Jibo was feeling incredibly smug about his little bribery scheme. He was dying to see a look of frantic concern on Zhang Yueyue's face. And just as Xiao Jibo had calculated, Zhang Yueyue's reaction was immediate. Her complexion turned noticeably grim. But just when Xiao Jibo thought she was about to stay and nurse him, he watched in shock as Zhang Yueyue whipped out her phone and dialed. Yuan Yuan, your brother just got diagnosed with heart disease. Get down to the hospital immediately to take care of him. Upon hearing Zhang Yueyue's cold directive, Xiao Jibo's face instantly darkened like ink. Something is seriously wrong with this script. Shouldn't she be the one staying behind to nurse me back to health? How did it turn into my sister coming to babysit me instead? Weren't things going perfectly just a second ago? Wait, who the hell is this guy? Who the hell is this guy? As Xiao Jibo caught a glimpse of you out of the corner of his eye, your gaze brimming with mocking amusement locked onto his. But Xiao Jibo was no fool. He knew better than to recklessly offend a stranger. Forcing a weak, sickly smile onto his pale face, he asked, and this gentleman is Zhang Yueyue. Felt her heart skip a beat at Xiao Jibo's inquiry into your identity. Panic surged within her, leaving her momentarily at a total loss for words. You, however, offered a nonchalant explanation. Don't mind me. Please carry on. I'm just here for the front row entertainment. Pfft. At your blunt remark, Qin Wanying couldn't hold it back anymore, and let out an audible burst of laughter. Zhang Yueyue's brow furrowed in irritation. Even if she didn't fully grasp the sarcasm in your tone, she was clearly displeased by Qin Wanying's outburst. What's so funny? Is there a joke I missed? Hearing Zhang Yueyue's sharp reprimand, Qin Wanying's heart skipped a nervous beat. Life had been a bit too comfortable lately, under your constant playful teasing. Zhang Yueyue hadn't shown this icy side in a long time. The assistant had almost forgotten just how terrifyingly fierce her boss could be. I'm so sorry. President Jiang, it wasn't intentional. All right. That's enough. Why are you being so harsh on Xiaoqin? Are we going home or what? If not, I'm heading back to start on dinner. Just as Zhang Yueyue was about to snap again, at Qin Wanying's stuttered apology, your casual pressure immediately cut off her train of thought. We're going, let's head out. Going home, it seemed that wherever you were, Zhang Yueyue would instinctively tune out Xiao Jibo entirely. She didn't even register his face turning a ghostly shade of white, watching the scene unfold while being treated like a ghost. Xiao Jibo's pupils constricted in silent rage, gazing at your approaching figure, deep within his gaze. A flash of pure unadulterated malice flickered. Just as you were about to brush past him, he clumsily feigned a collapse right at your feet. Why? Why did you shove me? Is it a crime for Yueyue and me to catch up as old friends? But much to Xiao Jibo's utter disbelief, you didn't even break your stride for a second. You stepped directly onto his hand that was braced against the floor, continuing your march toward Zhang Yueyue. It was as if Xiao Jibo were nothing more than a heap of trash, entirely unworthy of even a single glance from you. Yueyue, it hurts so much. I'm sure this brother didn't mean to do it. Please don't be too hard on him. That sudden pathetic shriek echoed throughout the sterile hospital corridor. As you were approaching Zhang Yueyue, you came to a dead halt, Pointing straight at the security camera overhead, you sneered. Are you actually blind? There's a camera right there. If you're gonna frame someone, at least find a blind spot first. The entire spectacle had unfolded in a heartbeat. Since Zhang Yueyue and Qin Wanying were both focused on you, neither had actually seen how Xiao Jibo ended up on the floor. However, knowing your character so well, Zhang Yueyue instinctively sided with you. She looked down at the sprawling Xiao Jibo with a complicated expression. Xiao Jibo, since when did you become so fond of framing innocent people? Her tone of pure disappointment was like a jagged blade to his chest. He opened his mouth to retort, but not a single word would come out. Seeing that Xiao Jibo had run out of pathetic tricks for the moment, you continued heading toward the exit. Let's go. Let this young master reflect on his life choices in private. Zhang Yueyue didn't spare Xiao Jibo another look. Instead, she immediately fell into step right beside you. She knew exactly who her real priority was, especially now when she might already be carrying little Mu's child. Still sprawled on the ground, acting frail, Xiao Jibo watched the group's retreating backs, a toxic shade of resentment pulling in the depths of his eyes. Zhang Yueyue, so this is how you wait for me. I was only gone for 1 year, and you already couldn't wait to find a replacement. And that bastard... Inside the car, Zhang Yueyue gently rested her head against your shoulder. You didn't seem to mind the closeness at all. Turning to look at Zhang Yueyue resting on your shoulder, you asked, So, my little assessment of him was pretty spot on, wasn't it? I never imagined the Xiao Jibo of the past would end up like this. The driver behind the wheel and Qin Wanying in the passenger seat exchanged a silent, knowing glance before sinking back into a profound silence. Suddenly, right at that moment, a thought seemed to flash through Zhang Yueyue's mind. She turned her gaze towards you. Why were you even at the hospital anyway? Were you there to visit that younger sister of yours? Yeah, she finally broke free from that illness once and for all. It feels like a massive weight has finally been lifted off my chest. You couldn't help but let out a sigh of genuine relief. Su Yao's condition had always been a dark cloud over the orphanage. Now that she's made a full recovery, the old director can finally let go of his deepest worry. That's wonderful. Before long, the Maybach came to a smooth halt right in front of the villa. You were the first to hop out, stretching out your arms to scoop Zhang Yueyue up in a bridal carry. My dear lady wife, those noble feet of yours weren't made for walking. Allow your humble servant little Mu to handle the rest. Permission granted. Let's go home. Under the dumbfounded stares of the driver and Qin Wanying, you carried Zhang Yueyue steadily toward the villa. Once you gently deposited her onto the sofa, you deftly helped her shed her business attire. Soon enough, Zhang Yueyue was lounging there in her natural state. Little Mu, bring me my silk nightgown. At your command, you mimicked a scene from a period drama, clapping your hands and dropping to one knee to play along. As the minutes ticked by, Zhang Yueyue, lying on the sofa, was struck by a bizarre realization. Wait a second. Why haven't I actually confessed everything to him yet? I've already given myself to him completely. Let's try coming clean one more time tonight. There's no way it fails again. What else is there left for me to lose at this point? But much to Zhang Yueyue's utter disappointment, she didn't even get the chance to open her mouth. The moment you finished tidying up the kitchen, just as she was gearing up to speak, she watched you dash upstairs at lightning speed. A few moments later, the sound of rushing water echoed from the bathroom. Where did it go wrong this time? I didn't even get a single word out. We're diving straight into the main event today. Even though Zhang Yueyue's mind was a complete fog of confusion, the very second the sound of rushing water hit her ears, her body moved entirely on its own. It was as if she had been Pavlovian trained. Zhang Yueyue instinctively glided upstairs and into the room, shedding her silk nightgown. She stepped into the steamy bathroom completely bare. This particular session in the shower seemed to drag on forever. By the time you finally carried the exhausted Zhang Yueyue back out, there was only one thought swirling in her hazy mind. Regret, absolute soul-crushing regret. Why was she so obsessed with this confession anyway? Was it even necessary? Not in the slightest. She was officially retiring from the truth-telling game. Zhang Yueyue felt like she was falling apart at the seams, without a single ounce of strength left in her body. She lay there like a fragile porcelain doll entirely at your mercy. The next morning, raindrops tapped a rhythmic melody against the leaves. Locked in each other's arms, you and Zhang Yueyue slept like logs. It wasn't until the clock struck noon that Zhang Yueyue finally fluttered her eyes open. She let out a long, satisfied sigh. Being cradled by the man behind her felt nothing short of divine. It provided a profound, overwhelming sense of security. Outside, the drizzle gradually intensified into a downpour. Zhang Yueyue had totally lost track of time, reaching out a slender arm to fish for her phone. When she saw the mountain of missed calls and the 1200 on the screen, her eyes nearly popped out of her head. She let out a world-ending shriek. I'm late. I'm so late. Brother Mu, I'm officially overdue for work. Despite her frantic panic, Zhang Yueyue didn't dare move an inch. Not just because a pair of hands were draped over her, but because she was held fast by a human lock. Jarred awake by her high-pitched scream, you slowly pried your eyes open, giving her an instinctive sleepy squeeze. You dizzily asked, "What's the crisis, my little lady? Has the emperor arrived?" Hearing you joking around in the middle of her panic, Zhang Yueyue's urgency began to drain away. She pouted and said, "Brother Mu, her highness is famished. I demand noodles. By your command, Empress. Though you longed to stay in bed with your beauty." The order triggered your reflexes and you immediately pulled away. Population. The sound like a cork being pulled from a bottle echoed sharply through the silent, tranquil room. You began dressing with half-closed, drowsy eyes. Finally freed from that human lock, Zhang Yueyue let out a faint, lingering sigh of relief. Glancing at the missed calls from Qin Wanying and Xiao Jibo, she hesitated for a brief moment, before finally dialing Qin Wanying back. President Zhang Yu finally picked up. "I was literally a second away from calling the police. Is everything okay? What happened?" The moment the call connected, Qin Wanying unleashed a rapid-fire barrage of words, muttering and venting her frantic worry, while bombarding her with a mountain of questions. Listening to Qin Wanying's desperate interrogation, Zhang Yueyue felt a twinge of guilty conscience, though she managed to maintain her composure over the phone. "I'm perfectly fine. I just happened to fall into a very deep sleep. Give me 2 hours. Then come to the villa to fetch me." After hanging up, Zhang Yueyue's gaze drifted to the clothes neatly arranged on the nightstand, and her heart melted into a puddle of warmth. Even if Brother Mu had zero interest in a corporate career, he managed every single detail of their home life to perfection. Zhang Yueyue never had to stress over her outfits or appearance. Everything was handled entirely by you, and your taste was quite frankly beyond reproach. Ever since you moved in a year ago, Zhang Yueyue felt her entire world had become infinitely brighter. Yet the one thing she still couldn't wrap her head around was why a full confession seemed so impossible. Why did every attempt at the truth end in a loss? At this moment, her competitive streak flared up even harder. Since things had already reached this point, she refused to believe you had any more tricks up your sleeve. Tonight, the confession was non-negotiable. She was going to tell the full story of her and Xiao Jibo no matter what. Once lunch was over, Zhang Yueyue headed off to conquer the office. You glanced at the calendar hanging on the wall. Only 3 days remained until the contract officially expired. What should the next move be? Right then, the doorbell suddenly chimed. Muga curiously approached the entrance, and as he swung the door open, he was met with a sight that left him speechless. The unexpected visitor was none other than Zhang Yueyue's younger brother Zhang Ziming, brother-in-law. "Quick, whip up something delicious for me. I've been craving your cooking for ages." The moment the door swung open, Zhang Ziming tried to bolt headfirst into the living room. You instantly snagged him by the back of his collar, nodding toward the slippers on the floor. "Shoes off. I literally just finished deep cleaning this place." "On it. Now hurry up and get cooking, brother-in-law. I'm absolutely starving." You were completely powerless against this college freshman, future brother-in-law of yours. Sighing, you retreated into the kitchen to start on lunch. As for why Zhang Ziming was so obsessed with you, it all traced back to a legendary session of Honor of Kings. Back then, you were in your prime, a toxic king dominating the Zuan server. During a random ranked match, you got queued up with Zhang Ziming, who was just a struggling high school sophomore at the time. After witnessing Ziming's absolute trash-tier gameplay, you had affectionately greeted every single one of your current in-laws and relatives in the chat. Call it fate, but while anyone else would have been triggered by such a verbal assault, to a rebellious teen like Ziming, your insults felt like a warm embrace. This bizarre bond led the two of you to become gaming buddies. It wasn't until you met at the Zhang household for a match that things became awkward enough to make your toes curl. The Zhuan dialect is deep and sophisticated after all. You two had effectively roasted 8 generations of each other's ancestors. The second you set the finished dishes on the table, Zhang Ziming began shoveling food into his mouth like a beast. Between bites, he flashed you a greasy thumbs up. "Man, this is heavenly. You're literally my goat. Now spill it. I know you didn't just crawl out here for a meal. You're not exactly the type to wander around for no reason. Damn, brother-in-law, you read me like a book. I actually came to warn you. Xiao Jibo is back in town." "I know. You do. Then why do you have zero sense of crisis? You know my sister used to be head over heels for that guy. Like, I give a damn. Your sister can love whoever the hell she wants to love. Besides, I might be packing my bags in a few days anyway." Clung mid-bite into a piece of sweet and sour pork. Zhang Ziming froze stunned by your complete lack of a reaction. Upon hearing that, you weren't even bothered and were actually planning to leave. The chopsticks in his hand clattered uncontrollably onto the dining table. "Brother-in-law, you're pulling my leg right. You're actually leaving. This isn't something for you to worry about. It all depends on your sister's final decision. It's not like she's the only woman in the world for me." You waved your hand dismissively, acting like it was no big deal. But the moment those words escaped your lips, a sharp pang of bitterness surged through your heart. "Fine. I guess I get it. But brother-in-law, you absolutely have to have a real heart-to-heart with my sister. It wasn't easy for you two to make it this far together." Facing the earnest loyalty of your future brother-in-law, you felt a cynical urge to laugh out loud. If they ever discovered you were nothing but a mere placeholder, how would they actually feel then? The two of you quickly wrapped up a lunch that had lost all its flavor. Jiang Ziming looked as if someone were chasing him with a blade. He didn't say a single word after finishing his meal, sprinting straight toward the front door. Sister's husband, I'm out, your little brother, has an absolute emergency to handle. Watching Jiang Ziming scramble away in a frantic blur, your mouth couldn't help but twitch in disbelief. Once you finished tidying up the kitchen, you collapsed onto the plush sofa, gradually drifting off into a deep, dreamless slumber. Meanwhile, back in his car, Jiang Ziming was in a state of high alert, flooring the accelerator as he sped toward the Jiang family estate. He spent the entire drive muttering frantically to himself, there is zero chance I'm letting brother-in-law leave my sister. If he goes, my pampered life of luxury goes right down the drain. All the way there, Ziming's heart was doing frantic backflips, looking at his panicked expression. You'd think you'd already packed your bags and vanished into the night. Finally reaching the ancestral Jiang mansion, Jiang Ziming didn't even bother to take the keys out of the ignition. Before charging inside like a whirlwind, he hollered at the top of his lungs while running. Mom, Dad, we've got a massive problem. Brother-in-law is leaving. He's actually leaving. You guys have to do something fast. That ear-shattering, earth-shaking roar sent the couple watching TV nearly leaping out of their skins. But once the gravity of his words finally sank in, their faces instantly darkened with dread. They turned their piercing gazes toward the disheveled Jiang Ziming. Get a grip on yourself and speak clearly. What's wrong with your brother-in-law? Why on earth would he be leaving? Even though Jiang Dongsheng maintained a measured tone, the deep agonizing furrow in his brow betrayed the absolute chaos swirling in his heart. Even Li Qingya, who usually radiated smiles in your presence, couldn't suppress the surge of panic tightening her chest as she stared down the gasping Jiang Ziming. Spit it out, what's the story? If you don't give me a full explanation right now, your allowance for next month is officially cancelled. At the mere threat of losing his cash flow, Jiang Ziming forced his racing heart to settle and started explaining. I don't know all the details either. I just went to Sis's place to score a free meal, and wanted to warn him that Xiao Jibo was back. But brother-in-law acted totally indifferent, even saying it was all up to Sis's choice. He said he might be gone in just a few days. The moment the name Xiao Jibo hit the air, Jiang Dongsheng and Li Qingyao's faces turned lethally grim. That little brat from the Xiao family, does he really think I Jiang Dongsheng am some pushover? He actually dares to mess with the Yue again. Jiang Dongsheng's expression was terrifying to behold. He snatched his phone off the table and barked a command into the receiver. Track down that Xiao Jibo, find out who he's seen since his return and exactly what went down with Yue. I want every single detail sent to me immediately. Meanwhile, just as you were drifting in a hazy slumber, you suddenly felt a strange nagging itch in your nose. Achoo achoo, unable to hold it back. You let out 2 violent sneezes before slowly blinking awake. But you hadn't realized that at some point. Jiang Yue had appeared right in front of you. The double shot of your sneezes landed with perfect accuracy, completely coating Jiang Yue's flawless god-tier face. Whoa, Empress. What are you doing standing there? The words had barely left your mouth when you spotted the strand of hair in her hand. No wonder your nose was itching like crazy. Little Moo, are you trying to pick a fight with the heavens? You actually dared to blast me twice in a row. Talk, how are you going to make this up to me? Well, your highness, perhaps Little Moo should serve the Empress a few extra times tonight to replenish your glucose levels. Jiang Yue, who was just joking around, felt her face instantly flush crimson. She felt like you were either constantly making a move or you were already halfway there. Fine, just hurry up and get ready. It's time to head out. Xuexui has already nudged me several times. At your command, Empress, watching your goofy antics. Even with her face literally covered in your accidental spray, Jiang Yue couldn't stop her lips from curling into a smile. You drifted gracefully toward Jiang Yue, scooping her up into a gentle bridal carry. As you marched toward the exit, the same familiar Maybach was waiting for you. After meticulously placing Jiang Yue into her seat, you finally slid in beside her. Uncle Zhao, witnessing your smooth maneuvers, couldn't help but let out a knowing, heartfelt chuckle as he floored the accelerator toward the destination. Qin Wanying was notably absent from the car this time, to ensure the Shenzhou group could handle any sudden crisis. As the lead assistant, she remained on standby in the CEO's office, ready to tackle any emergency at a moment's notice. It truly was a damn shame. Tonight's lavish hotel birthday banquet was officially off limits for her, no matter which of Jiang Yue's friends was celebrating. Qin Wanying was strictly bound to that office desk. The car cruised through the city streets, soon arriving at tonight's venue, the Imperial Royal Business Club. Just one look at that prestigious name, and you couldn't help but nod in total approval. A club like this definitely has a high-end foot massage parlor. Maybe you could even score a relaxing soak later. Just as Jiang Yue was preparing to step out, she caught the look of pure anticipation on your face and felt a wave of genuine curiosity. Little Moo, what's going through that head of yours? You look like you just won the lottery. Hearing her call out to you, you quickly spun around and reached the car door, resting your hand protectively over the frame. My Empress, I just feel like this place perfectly matches my persona. And what persona would that be? The persona of a man who lives for a good foot soak. Zhang Yueyue shot you an annoyed, playful glare, totally unaware that foot massage connoisseur was indeed your true identity. Otherwise, how would you dare drag Zhang Dongsheng and Li Qingya out for a soak? Yueyue, you finally made it. Just as you were assisting Zhang Yueyue out of the car, Xiao Jibo's voice suddenly drifted over from the side. He was still as deathly pale as ever, his physique so frail and drained that it looked like a light breeze might knock him over. Huh. Zhang Yueyue didn't even grant Xiao Jibo a shred of courtesy. Who told him to try and frame you yesterday? In her world, no matter how big the stakes, you were the top priority, no exceptions for anyone. Xiao Jibo's face stiffened momentarily at the cold shoulder, but he quickly masked his frustration. Just as he was preparing to greet you, he suddenly overheard your conversation with Zhang Yueyue. My empress, shall we proceed inside? Very well, little Mu, escort me in. The two of you flirted as if no one else existed, completely ghosting Xiao Jibo like he wasn't even a living person. By the time Xiao Jibo managed to find his voice, you both had already vanished into the club's interior, as if the very memory of Xiao Jibo had been erased from existence. Brother, what are you doing standing out here? Why haven't you gone inside yet? Xiao Xiaobi approached from behind Xiao Jibo, curiously eyeing her brother who returned from abroad with a sudden heart condition. Oh, Yuan, yeah. It's nothing, come on. Let's head inside together. Sensing the awkwardness, Xiao Jibo quickly pivoted the conversation and led Xiao Xiaobi by the hand into the venue. However, his eyes remained glued to your hand supporting Zhang Yueyue, a flicker of pure green-eyed envy burning in his gaze. Hey, isn't that Sister Yueyue? Who's that guy clinging to her side? No wonder she didn't stay to nurse you yesterday. Looks like she's finally found herself a boyfriend. Xiao Xiaobi had also spotted Zhang Yueyue's silhouette, teasing Xiao Jibo with a gossipy smirk. But Xiao Jibo was currently drowning in a sea of intense jealousy, and didn't hear a word, inside the club's most lavish fourth-floor VIP suite. You were acting like a loyal personal attendant, stooping slightly as you escorted Zhang Yueyue through the doors. The dramatic entrance instantly drew every single eye in the room, just as some were beginning to think you were both just putting on a show. Ling Xue, seated at the head of the table, eyes lit up. She rose to her feet and called out, Yueyue, you're finally here. And Brother Mu, you came too. Thank you both so much for coming to my birthday bash. In reality, your presence in this circle wasn't exactly a secret among Zhang Yueyue's elite squad of friends. After all, your god-tier level of attentiveness had sparked a brand new, competitive streak of comparison among her inner circle, since none of them had found a partner even half as considerate as you. Yueyue's besties harbored a deep-seated resentment toward their own men. Honestly, it wasn't just the ladies feeling the heat. The guys' hatred for you was reaching stratospheric levels, watching your smooth professional service right now. They were all internally cursing you out. You're a grown man, for crying out loud. Why do you have to be so damn extra with the pampering? How are the rest of us supposed to survive this? You feast on the finest, leaving us with absolutely nothing, not even the scraps. You're basically making us look like trash. Is that fair? As for whether it was fair or not, you couldn't care less about their fragile egos, escorting Zhang Yueyue to Ling Xue's side. You gave the birthday girl a polite nod, then effortlessly pulled out a chair, waiting for Zhang Yueyue to settle in. This display of peak chivalry once again drew envious stares from the women, and lethal murderous glares from every man at the table. Yet you seemed completely oblivious to the waves of hostility directed your way. Once Zhang Yueyue was comfortably seated, your gaze swept across the spread on the table, noticing the glasses already brimming with alcohol. To the absolute bewilderment of the entire room, you grabbed a fresh empty glass from the side and filled it with warm water. President Zhang, your cycle starts in 2 days. Alcohol is a no-go for you right now. Let's stick to water tonight. A flash of pure bliss shimmered in the depths of Zhang Yueyue's eyes as she gave you a soft, submissive nod. Ling Xue felt like a massive serving of dog food had just been shoved down her throat with zero warning. For a split second, she completely forgot that she was supposed to be the star of the show today. Yueyue hasn't even said a word yet, and you're already making executive decisions for her. Xiao Jibo had just strolled in with Xiao Xiaobi in tow, sneering at you. Faced with Xiao Jibo's shameless attempts to start drama, you didn't even bother to grant him a single glance. After treating him like total thin air, you casually took your seat right next to Zhang Yueyue. She spared a single glance toward Xiao Jibo, as if she were staring at a pile of discarded trash. Yet it seemed Xiao Jibo was missing a few brain cells, misinterpreting Zhang Yueyue's icy glare as a look of pure admiration. In an instant, Xiao Jibo began to smirk with insufferable smugness. Surrounded by eyes treating him like a circus clown, he felt zero embarrassment. Only Xiao Xiaobi truly couldn't stomach her brother's sheer idiocy anymore. She quickly yanked her hand away and shuffled several seats over, finally escaping the blast radius of the group's collective judgment. However, Xiao Jibo, oblivious to the mood, couldn't care less about her attitude, as he swaggered over to your side with a flourish. Kid, this isn't a seat meant for someone of your status. Now move along, will you? Xiao Jibo's audacity in trying to play host at someone else's party was too much even for Ling Shui to endure. Xiao Jibo, what exactly do you think you're doing? Did I even invite you to my birthday celebration? You show up uninvited and have the nerve to act this arrogant. Ling Shui's words didn't leave Xiao Jibo with a single shred of dignity. Whoa, Miss Ling Shui. This Mr. Xiao clearly isn't firing on all cylinders. So let's try to be patient with him. Just as Zhang Yueyue was about to explode in your defense, you stepped in to play peacemaker for Ling Shui. The look of profound sorrow on your face seemed like genuine, heartfelt concern for how a moron like Xiao Jibo would survive the real world. What about you? Do you even know who my father is? Wait, you don't even recognize your own father. You poor confused child. Your mockery sent Xiao Jibo's temper through the roof in an instant. He pointed a trembling finger at you, ready to unleash a torrent of abuse. But since you were intimately familiar with this cliché routine, you didn't give him a single opening to perform. With a few sharp words, you completely shut down his verbal casting. Young Master Xiao doesn't even know his own dad's identity. Truly a scandal for the ages. Xiao Xiaobi never dreamed her dim-witted brother would humiliate himself so thoroughly among Jiangdong's elite. She snapped, pointing directly at his nose and screaming, Xiao Jibo, get your ass home right this second. Keep this up and I'll personally freeze every single one of your cards. Xiao Jibo's expression shifted instantly. The second the words left your mouth earlier, he realized he had walked straight into a trap. But the damage was already done. He didn't even have a chance to clap back. But what Xiao Jibo never anticipated was that Xiao Xiaobi wouldn't have his back. Instead, she was straight up kicking him while he was down, while Xiao Jibo's brain scrambled for an escape route. You decided to twist the knife again. Careful now, Miss Xiao. Watch out, your brother has a delicate heart condition. Who knows when he might suddenly pass out. Hearing your mock concerned explanation, Xiao Jibo's eyes instantly lit up. He thought, now that's a brilliant move. Just as Xiao Xiaobi was about to continue her tirade, Xiao Jibo clutched his chest and began swaying, aiming to collapse right onto Zhang Yueyue. He put on a performance like he was actually on the verge of a cardiac arrest. But you weren't about to give this clown a single opening. With a sudden powerful kick, the supposedly unconscious Xiao Jibo was jolted back to full awareness by your foot. It was nothing short of a goddamn medical miracle. At this point, even Zhang Yueyue finally saw through the act. Xiao Jibo's so-called heart disease was just another pathetic lie to manipulate her. It turns out only Brother Mu is a real one. The rest of these guys are just straight up trash. Even the childhood friend she grew up with was no exception. Ling Shui stood to the side, ready to burst into tears. What was supposed to be a perfect birthday banquet had spiraled into this chaotic mess. By now, Xiao Jibo had completely lost his mind with rage, totally forgetting his life-threatening heart condition. He sprang up like a jack-in-the-box. Pointing a finger at you, he screamed, "You dare lay a foot on me? Do you have any idea who my father is? How dare you kick me enough?" And right at that explosive moment, Zhang Yueyue, who had been silent until now, let out an icy command. Her voice was cold enough to freeze someone solid. As the powerhouse CEO of the Shenzhou group, her natural aura was suffocating. Nothing a spoiled second-generation brat like Xiao Jibo could ever handle. With just that one sentence from Zhang Yueyue, the rowdy dinner table fell into a deathly silence. Xiao Jibo, I actually went out of my way to pick you up yesterday. If I had known you'd turn into this kind of disgrace, I wouldn't have cared. If you had just died overseas, seeing Zhang Yueyue's genuine fury, it wasn't just Xiao Jibo who trembled. Even her best friend Ling Shui didn't dare step in. But to everyone's absolute shock, you casually leaned in toward Zhang Yueyue with a grin and teased, "Your Majesty, how about a smile?" Nobody expected that, given the suffocatingly tense atmosphere. You would actually dare to act like a total goofball. The most mind-blowing part, Zhang Yueyue was utterly defenseless against your charm. The moment the words left your mouth, Zhang Yueyue's icy stoic expression instantly shattered, and a soft, genuine giggle escaped her lips, melting the freezing tension within the VIP suite. "Oh, stop it. Can't you see I'm trying to be serious here? You always know exactly how to tease me." Under the stunned gazes of every guest in the room, Zhang Yueyue completely dropped her guard and gave you a playful, affectionate nudge. Gulp. Nobody knew exactly who it was, but the sound of someone swallowing hard seemed to echo through the entire silent room on a constant loop. The reason these elite brats flocked to Ling Shui's birthday bash was solely because she was Zhang Yueyue's closest confidant. They were all just desperate for a chance to get on her radar, but they all knew the reputation. The CEO of Shenzhou Group was a cold, unyielding ice queen. Yet what the hell was this scene? Could this really be the legendary ruthless CEO? Xiao Jibo, still sprawled on the floor, was drowning in pure resentment. He had never seen Zhang Yueyue make a face like that in his life. Yet she displayed it to this pretty boy without a hint of hesitation. Witnessing this caused Xiao Jibo's inner jealousy to finally reach a breaking point. Driven by a sudden reckless burst of courage, he snatched up a nearby kettle of boiling water and hurled it straight toward Zhang Yueyue. Because Zhang Yueyue was busy talking to you, she was completely oblivious to the lethal threat from behind. No watch out. Just as everyone thought she was about to be scalded by the boiling kettle, your silhouette blurred as you lunged behind her, locking her in a protective, unwavering embrace. The kettle crashed to the floor, drenching you in a wave of searing, scalding water. The agonizing, burning sensation forced you to grit your teeth and wince with a strained expression. Yet you still found the strength to tease her. My empress, little Mu kept you safe. It just stings a little bit. Brother Mu Zhang Yue finally realized the horror of what had happened, gazing at your body as steam literally billowed off your skin. Her heart was instantly seized by a frantic panic. Why would you be so reckless? Are you okay? Please talk to me. Zhang Yue's voice choked with sobs as she scrambled up, desperately trying to support you. But the moment she brushed against you, the searing heat forced her to recoil. Seeing that even a light touch was unbearable, Zhang Yue felt a surge of agony. After all, your entire back was, it's not a big deal. My empress. But if you could call an ambulance for little Mu, that would be pretty great right about now. By this point, you had finally snapped out of the initial shock of the impact, and began frantically peeling off your scorched clothes. Ling Xue bolted out screaming for the staff to find a medic. Fortunately, a high-end club like this always had medical personnel on standby. Meanwhile, Xiao Jibo still sprawled on the floor, wore a look of pure sadistic schadenfreude, as if he were terrified that people might actually overlook his existence. He even had the audacity to start mocking you. Ha, see that, you little brat? That's exactly what happens when you cross Xiao Jibo. You Xiao Jibo, this is far from over. If the Xiao family doesn't give me a satisfactory explanation, then there's no longer any need for the Xiao family to exist in Jiangdong. Before Xiao Jibo could even finish his delusional boasting, he was cut short by Zhang Yue's bone-chilling voice. Nearby, Xiao Xiaobi was utterly horrified by her idiotic brother's stunt. She whipped out her phone and made a desperate call. Dad, your precious son just infuriated Sister Yue, she said. If we don't handle this, she's going to bankrupt the entire Xiao family. You'd better figure something out fast. It was impossible to tell exactly what was being screamed on the other end of the line, but Xiao Xiaobi hung up looking completely defeated. She tried to approach you and Zhang Yue in the center of the crowd, only to hear Ling Xue shouting at the top of her lungs. The medic is here. Everyone get back. Let the doctor through. By now, you had stripped off your shirt entirely, leaving your perfect 8-pack abs on full glorious display for the entire room to see. But your back was a gruesome mess of angry swollen red, with blisters already beginning to crawl across your skin. Watching this, Zhang Yue broke down into heart-wrenching tears. Kinma, please hang in there. This is all my fault. I should have never stayed friends with that absolute trash. You have to hang in there, please. President Jiang, is it possible that I'm not actually dying? Looking at Zhang Yue, whose face was completely streaked with tears, you offered a somewhat helpless explanation. Soon after, the doctor applied a cooling ointment to your back and stood up to explain the situation. This young man's physical constitution is incredible. There won't be any lasting damage, though the skin back there won't look very pretty for a while. Just head to a hospital later for some skin repair and he'll be fine. Once she heard that you were truly out of danger, Zhang Yue completely ignored the crowd of onlookers and threw herself directly into your arms. You scared me to death. Brother Mu, I almost thought you were, but before she could finish that thought, you quickly reached out to muffle her tearful words, fearing that if she kept talking like that, he really would end up meeting his end. Xiao Jibo, where do you think you're going? Right at that moment, someone's male companion suddenly shouted, his voice cutting through the air. The second Zhang Yue heard the name Xiao Jibo, her eyes turned into shards of ice. She glared at Xiao Jibo, who was currently trying to sneak toward the exit. Xiao Jibo, you'd better watch for Shenzhou Group's legal summons. I don't care how many millions it costs. I will make sure you end up behind bars. Having said her piece, she ignored everyone's reaction and personally helped you up, guiding you toward the door. As you passed by the stunned and frozen Xiao Jibo, you leaned into Zhang Yue with a pitiful, wounded expression and whimpered, My empress. Little Mu is in so much pain. It's all because of that idiot who doesn't even know his own father. You have to avenge me. Zhang Yue, who had just regained her composure, witnessed your ridiculous and comical acting and simply couldn't hold it back. Once again, she let out a spontaneous, light-hearted laugh. Fine, fine. Let's get you to the hospital immediately, before you lose strength on me. As the silhouettes of the two drifted away, the host of the birthday banquet, Ling Xia, wore a cold expression for the first time. She turned her gaze toward Xiao Xiaobi. Xiaobi, I truly considered you a close friend, and that's why I invited you to my birthday banquet. But this is how you repay my trust, by bringing this brainless buffoon to ruin everything. Wait, Xuexua, let me explain, save your breath. From this exact moment onward, every single contract between the Lin and Xiao families is terminated. As of now, I no longer have a friend like you. Ling Xue didn't wait for a reaction from the shell-shocked duo. She snatched up her luxury designer bag from the side and stormed out of the room. The Zhang family is also cutting all ties with the Xiaos, Same for the Zhao family, and the Li family count the Wangs in too. It's over in a flash. Every single guest in the VIP suite passed by Xiao Xiaobi, unloading their shared contempt and business ultimatums. After hearing the death knell of her family's empire, Xiao Xiaobi turned to the frozen, useless Xiao Jibo and sneered with a face of iron. Are you satisfied now? The Xiao family is finished. Not a single soul in Jiangdong will ever touch us again. Your precious allowance is gone forever. Are you happy? Xiao Xiaobi realized that words alone couldn't vent her blistering rage. She lunged for a heavy chair nearby and violently smashed it directly over Xiao Jibo's head. At that precise moment, the old patriarch of the Zheng family appeared at the entrance, witnessing the brutal assault. His eyes nearly popped out of his head as he roared. Xiao Xiaobi, how dare you lay a hand on your own brother? Ha, hit him. I'm itching to kill him. Over half the companies in Jiangdong are blacklisting us as we speak. And it's all thanks to your golden boy's idiocy. Are you enjoying the view? Xiao Xiaobi stared at the barging old man with a chilling, mocking grin, eyes brimming with hatred for this father-son duo of dead weight. If I hadn't been breaking my back to expand this business, the Xiao name would have been erased years ago. Where do you think your lavish lifestyle even came from? I never asked for your help, but I expected you to have enough brain cells, not to sabotage me. But look at us now, it's perfect. Everything is gone. From now on, the two of you can rot on the streets. Leaving those final words, Xiao Xiaobi turned her back, ignoring the blood-soaked Xiao Jibo and the paralyzed old man at the door. Snatching up her bag, she stormed straight out of the Royal Business Club. Meanwhile, Yu and Zhang Yueyue had just arrived at the hospital. The hospital director, who had already clocked out, received the urgent notification and raced to the entrance without a second's delay to personally welcome the groom. Sir, you finally arrived. That single honorific alone caused the powerful CEO Zhang Yueyue to flush crimson instantly. She shot the director a fierce warning glare. But you couldn't care less about titles. The searing agony in your back made you desperate to get inside and find relief. However, as the two of you hurried into the hospital interior, you failed to notice an elderly couple passing by you, whose bodies suddenly froze in total shock, as if their pressure points had been struck. 3 grueling hours later, you had finally finished having your wounds treated, and were resting on a hospital bed, seeing the sheer exhaustion written all over Zhang Yueyue's face. A warm sensation surged through your heart. You tried to tease her to lighten the mood. My Empress, your little moo is totally fine. You should head home and get some rest. But she resisted with a look of pure stubbornness. No way. I'm staying right here to look after you. I'm terrified something else might happen. You could only let out a sigh filled with guilt. What a pity. I was planning to give my Empress some special nourishment tonight. Suddenly, Zhang Yueyue lowered her head in a sincere apology. I'm so sorry. Brother Mu, I never imagined Xiao Jibo was that kind of monster. I dragged you into this. You found her guilt baffling wasn't protecting her exactly what you were meant to do. But while the two of you were sharing this intimate moment, 2 shadowy figures outside were harboring a secret that would flip your life upside down. Old Mo, did you get a good look at him? That boy, he looks exactly like us. I'm not blind woman, but our children are all perfectly fine. How could there be someone else who looks so similar? Could there have been a mix-up at the hospital? The man's voice was laced with profound shock and confusion. I've already sent someone to get DNA samples from the 3rd and 4th boys. Good heavens, that child's back was covered in blood. How on earth was he still walking? While they were still reeling from the shock of your potential identity, little did they know the vibe inside the room had completely spiraled out of control. When the first rays of dawn broke the next morning, Zhang Yueyue drifted awake in a daze, only to instantly feel those all-too-familiar shackles and wandering paws. She was utterly dumbfounded. Wait, isn't this supposed to be a hospital? She had planned to use your injury as an opening to confess everything about Xiao Jibo. But remembering the grueling ordeal of brushing her teeth 5 times last night, her cheeks flushed a deep burning crimson. The price of your treatment was way too steep. Right then, she caught the faint sleepy mumble coming from you as you held her tight. Mistress, you're finally awake. I'm still not fully recovered, so no breakfast duty for me today. Just let me hold you and sleep a bit longer. Zhang Yueyue, acting like a pampered child, actually snuggled deeper into your chest. Fine, just keep holding me while we sleep. I'm taking the day off to stay by your side. However, that tiny movement snapped both of you into sudden wide-awake realization. A thick, suffocatingly flirtatious atmosphere instantly enveloped the bed, just as you were gearing up to take things to the next level. Knock, 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 an urgent pounding on the door jolted you both upright. Yueyue, brother Mu, I've come to check on you guys. It was none other than Ling Xue's voice calling from the hallway. Zhang Yueyue went into a full-blown panic. She hissed in a frantic low whisper. Quick, Xiao Shui is coming in. If she catches us like this, I'm dead. Hardly had she finished her sentence, when a distinct pop echoed, like a cork finally being yanked from a wine bottle. Zhang Yueyue nearly let out a scandalous moan she couldn't suppress. What followed was the frantic rustling of clothes being thrown on under the covers. Only when everything was perfectly in place Did a flushed Zhang Yueyue finally head over to swing the door open? Xiao Xiao, what brings you here so early? Ling Xue playfully waved the lunchboxes in her hands, with a gentle, knowing smile. Brother Mu got hurt at my party after all. It's only right that I come and look after him, just as she spoke. Growl. Her stomach let out a thunderous rumble. See, I knew you guys hadn't eaten yet. Ling Xue couldn't help but burst into a fit of giggles. You completely abandoned all sense of dignity or image. After skipping dinner last night, and putting in all that exhausting labor, you were practically starving to death. You instantly sprang up to snatch the food containers, shoveling the meal down like a starving beast, though you still remembered to share half with Zhang Yueyue. Right at that moment, Ling Xue's face clouded over with deep regret. Brother Mu, regarding what happened last night, I am so incredibly sorry. I never should have invited that prick Xiao Jibo. You simply waved it off as if it were nothing. Forget about it. Who could have predicted a rabid dog would bite but that gesture? Instantly aggravated the raw wounds on your back. You winced hard, your face contorting in pain. Brother, what's wrong? The words escaped Zhang Yueyue's lips before she could think. You froze in absolute confusion. Brother, isn't that nickname strictly reserved for her family? You were only stunned for a split second, before immediately pivoting to change the subject, striking a pose of mock solemnity and grandeur. It's nothing, just a little sting. With my empress here, little Mu fears nothing in this world. Poof, both women were instantly revitalized by your goofy antics. Ling Xue smiled as she began to scrutinize you with newfound respect. He's handsome, incredibly thoughtful, and masters the art of emotional support. He even keeps track of Zhang Yueyue's cycle. What woman wouldn't fall for a man like this? Zhang Yueyue's eyes curved into crescent moons as she beamed, her sense of bliss practically overflowing from her soul. All right. I'm heading home for a quick trip, to grab some fresh clothes and essentials. I'll be staying here at the hospital to keep you company for the next few days. You immediately offered a respectful, courtly bow, despite being stuck in a sitting position. As you command. My glorious empress, seeing this level of PDA Ling Xue, felt too embarrassed to linger around any longer, so she stood up and excused herself. The moment the two ladies exited the ward hand in hand, you finally let out a massive sigh of relief. Your mind immediately started racing through the logistics. Only 2 days left on the clock. Should I actually leave this life behind or stay? But you didn't have a single second to overthink it. Just minutes after Zhang Yueyue had departed, the door creaked open just a tiny crack. Zhang Dongsheng and Li Qingya slipped inside, tiptoeing like a pair of cat burglars. You stared at the pair in absolute disbelief. Mom, Dad, what on earth are you two doing sneaking around like that? You little brat, Zhang Dongsheng snapped, irritated by your bewildered expression. Aren't we just strictly following your own ridiculous orders? You're the one who told us Yueyue can't know about our relationship yet. You rubbed your nose in sheer awkwardness. It seemed this mess really was entirely your fault. Suddenly, Li Qingya's eyes welled up with tears in an instant. Her gaze was overflowing with heart-wrenching pity for you, as she gently brushed away a stray tear from her cheek. My dear boy, you've suffered so much, you yelled. Thank you, Mom. Thank you. It's all thanks to you that our Yueyue is safe. Zhang Dongsheng gave a firm, heavy nod, his tone becoming incredibly solemn. Your mother is right. If it hadn't been for your quick thinking, Yueyue might have been truly ruined. Ruined your... Heart skipped a beat in alarm, only for Zhang Dongsheng to continue gravely. That kettle of boiling water, if you hadn't used your body as a human shield, it would have smashed directly into Yueyue's face. Your mind started buzzing with a deafening roar. Scalding water, splashing onto her flawless, delicate porcelain skin. The mere thought of the consequences was too horrific to imagine. You forced yourself to squeeze out a reassuring smile. Dad, Mom, isn't this exactly what I'm supposed to do? Yueyue is my girlfriend. If I don't protect her with my life, then who will? To prove your point, you gave your body a symbolic little shrug. To show them you were perfectly fine. Sizzle, in a searing white-hot flash of agony from your back struck like a bolt. You couldn't help but let out a muffled groan of pain. Zhang Dongsheng and Li Qingya exchanged a meaningful look, their eyes brimming with immense pride and satisfaction. This future son-in-law remained calm under pressure, didn't brag about his heroics, and loved their daughter with every fiber of his being. Aside from being a bit broke, he was essentially perfect. Your mother got up at 4 a.m. just to stew this chicken soup for you. Drink it while it's hot to nourish your body. Zhang Dongsheng hurriedly lifted the lunchbox he was carrying and poured out a steaming bowl for you. Staring at the soup placed before you, a wave of genuine warmth flooded your entire soul. It suddenly dawned on you that over the past year, the Zhang family's kindness toward you had been beyond words. Zhang Yueyue never let you spend a single cent of your own, while Zhang Dongsheng and Li Qingya showered you with gifts, without ever glancing at a price tag. Having grown up in the cold halls of an orphanage, you had never experienced the warmth of parental love until now. Suddenly, a staggering realization exploded in your mind. In just one single year, the gifts they had given you were worth hundreds of millions, not to mention the various properties and businesses. You couldn't suppress your emotions any longer. as the floodgates opened and tears streamed down your face. Thank you, Dad. Thank you so much, Mom. The deeply sentimental Li Qingya, seeing your tears fall, couldn't help but break down and weep along with you. My dear child, why are you crying? Mom is right here for you. Even Zhang Dongsheng, a man who had weathered countless storms, found his eyes turning a heavy misty red. If you keep crying, you won't look pretty anymore. Looking at Li Qingya's tear-blurred vision, you quickly tried to comfort her. After all, you've always been the most vanity-conscious one. Deep down, you knew perfectly well that their immense kindness towards you was perhaps only because of Zhang Yueyue's influence. Yet this heavy, unconditional parental affection was a treasure you had never possessed in your entire life. This was the true reason you were so devoted to caring for Zhang Yueyue. Fine, I'll listen. To my boy, Mom will stop crying now. Li Qingya wiped away her tears with a bittersweet smile and immediately began to urge you. Quick, drink up. If you like it, Mom will bring you more tomorrow. You didn't refuse her again, lifting the bowl filled with the essence of a mother's love, sipping it down slowly, one spoonful at a time. Yet for some reason, the more you drank, the harder your tears fell. The heart always becomes exceptionally fragile after an injury, and every bit of this was being watched intensely by eyes outside the ward. That mysterious elderly couple from yesterday was witnessing the scene with hearts full of agonizing pain, watching you call another man and woman dad and mom, while basking in the tender care of a different couple. A tidal wave of conflicting emotions instantly flooded their hearts. The moment you finished every last drop of that chicken soup, Zhang Dongsheng and Li Qingya stood up to take their leave. As they stepped out into the hallway, their eyes briefly locked with the elderly couple standing nearby. It wasn't until they reached the hospital exit that Zhang Dongsheng suddenly slapped his forehead in realization. He turned toward Li Qingya, asking, "Did those two sitting outside the ward not look strangely familiar to you?" Li Qingya, however, didn't give him the time of day, ignoring his question entirely. As she walked straight toward their luxury business van, Zhang Dongsheng scratched his thinning hair, his face a mask of pure bewilderment. "I swear I've seen them somewhere before. What is going on?" He racked his brain for a long while, but since he couldn't connect the dots, he simply climbed into the car and drove away. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, the second Zhang Yueyue stepped into her Maybach. The warmth on her face vanished in a heartbeat. In its place was a gaze of absolute bone-chilling frost. The driver and assistant immediately held their breath, terrified to make a sound. Xiaoqin Jiang Yueyue's voice was devoid of any emotion. "Contact the legal department. I want every shred of criminal evidence on Xiao Jibo gathered immediately. I'm going to bury him behind bars." Every syllable she uttered felt like a shard of ice. Furthermore, terminate every single project involving the Xiao family. Issue a formal announcement. Shenzhou Group is permanently severing all ties with the Xiaos. In the passenger seat, assistant Qin Wanying felt a massive shockwave. The very heavens over Jiangdong were about to shift. It seemed the CEO's long-lost white moonlight finally lost to the devoted cinnabar mole. "Understood, President Jiang. Is there anything else?" "Take me back to the villa." Zhang Yueyue stared out the window with a distant gaze. "Until Brother Mu is discharged. I'll be working from home. Unless it's a dire emergency. Do not disturb me." "Understood, President Jiang." Suddenly, right at that moment, Qin Wanying's phone began to vibrate incessantly. She glanced at the caller ID, and her entire body froze in place. Zhang Yueyue noticed the strange reaction, and asked in a cold, sharp tone, "Who's calling?" Qin Wanying's throat tightened, as she struggled to force the words out. "President Jiang, it's Mr. Muge." Zhang Yueyue's gaze instantly sharpened like a blade. "Answer it. Put it on speaker." The second Qin Wanying pressed the accept button. Your voice echoed through the luxury car. "Comrade Xiaoqin, hello there." Your tone was perfectly casual, as if you were discussing a trivial matter. "I'm currently stuck in the hospital, and President Jiang's period starts tomorrow. We're out of pads at home. Could you help me pick some up?" As the words trailed off, the car fell into a tomb-like silence. Zhang Yueyue, Qin Wanying, and the driver all gasped in unison, as if the oxygen had been sucked out of the vehicle. Zhang Yueyue was utterly floored. You actually tracked the exact inventory of her personal supplies at home. Just how meticulously observant could one man be? Meanwhile, Qin Wanying and the driver were scared out of their wits, terrified this call would push the CEO's already foul mood over the edge. Hello. Comrade Xiaoqin? Are you still there?" Your confused voice drifted through the receiver. Qin Wanying shuddered, catching Zhang Yueyue's eye in the rearview mirror, and stammered out a response. Yes. What brand does President Jiang prefer?" Your reply came through crystal clear. 7 space. They use 245 millimeters length. Not use 275 millimeters, and grab a pack of tampons as well. "Thanks, Comrade Xiaoqin." "No problem, Brother Mu. Get some rest. Bye." Qin Wanying carefully hung up the phone, stealing another nervous glance at the mirror. She instantly let out a massive sigh of relief. The woman who had been a literal ice queen seconds ago now had cheeks flushed a deep rosy pink. Zhang Yueyue's eyes narrowed into soft, blissful slits, leaving no trace of the terrifying iceberg CEO behind. She was clearly nothing more than a little girl drowning in a sea of love. Meanwhile, inside the CEO's office at Xiao Family Real Estate, Xiao Xiaobi was frantically dialing numbers. Hello, President Wang. About what happened last night, it wasn't beep, beep, beep. The call was heartlessly disconnected. Hello, President Li. Please let me explain cut off again. President Zhang, don't hang up. Just give me 1 second to explain. Please. A voice filled with grim finality came from the other end. Xiao Xiaobi, listen. I don't need your explanations. Shenzhou Group has already issued an official decree, permanently severing all ties with the Xiao family. We rely on Shenzhou to survive, so we're done. Xiao Xiaobi slumped back, her phone slipping from her hand. It's over. Everything is completely ruined. She shot a frigid, mocking glare at the old man sitting opposite her. You heard that right. Your degenerate son successfully dragged the Xiao family into hell. Are you satisfied now? The old man's wrinkled face instantly twisted into a pathetic, sycophantic smile as he pleaded. Daughter, I was only looking out for your brother. Xiao Xiaobi cut him off mid-sentence, her eyes radiating a bone-chilling frost. Starting today, I am severing all ties with you and that worthless brat. Every single privilege you enjoy is being revoked. You have exactly 24 hours to pack up and get out of the villa. Xiaobi, I am your father, and he is your own flesh and blood. The old man tried to use family ties to emotionally blackmail her, but Xiao Xiaobi simply stared him down, enunciating every single word. Before Mom passed, she told me to give you 3 chances, but I've given you far more than that. Now, Sister Yue has already launched an investigation into that moron Xiao Jibo. As for you, Xiao Xiaobi didn't say another word, merely letting out a sharp, cynical scoff. That single sound caused the old man's face to turn ghostly pale, leaving him paralyzed with sheer terror. He knew this time his daughter's heart had turned to absolute stone, and by the time Zhang Yue had handled the fallout and returned to the hospital, she stumbled upon a scene that left her utterly shell-shocked. The source of her astonishment was none other than her own brother Jiang Ziming. That insufferable, chaotic demon king of the family was actually perched right beside your hospital bed, meticulously peeling an apple for you with the utmost care. Ziming, what on earth are you doing here? Zhang Yue was visibly shell-shocked. And since when did you know Brother Mu Jiang Ziming's hand froze mid-peel as he turned his head stiffly? Sis, you're back way sooner than I expected. He forced a strained, sycophantic grin onto his face. I was just checking in on my brother-in-law. Don't make a big deal out of it, okay? The title, brother-in-law, sent an electric jolt straight through Zhang Yue's heart. The tips of her ears were instantly stained a delicate shade of pink. She shot a flustered, indignant glare at Jiang Ziming. What kind of nonsense are you spouting? Brother Mu and I haven't even registered our marriage yet. Don't just go throwing that word around, oh please. Isn't that just a matter of time anyway? Sis, you really are, heh. Sensing the sibling rivalry was about to ignite into a full-blown war, you leaned back against the hospital pillows and let out a tactical dry cough. Ziming, I think it's time for you to head out. Upon hearing your command, Jiang Ziming was baffled. Yet he didn't dare disobey your word. He nodded like a well-behaved puppy. All right then, brother-in-law, when you're free, I'll come visit you again. You better get well soon. Watching her brother's uncharacteristically obedient departure, a surge of secret joy bubbled up inside Zhang Yue. Even Ziming approved. It felt like they were one giant leap closer to being official. She couldn't wait to perch herself on the edge of your bed, blinking those wide, curious eyes at you. All right, little moose billet. How did you even meet that little demon king of a brother of mine? You were currently mid-bite into your apple, and you froze slightly upon hearing her question. You obviously couldn't tell her you met while gaming. After politely greeting 18 generations of his ancestors, your eyes darted around for a second, before a convenient lie slipped past your lips. One day when you weren't around, Ziming dropped by the house. I whipped up a meal for him, and he's been coming around ever since. Is it really that simple? You lied through your teeth without blinking an eye. Wait, I've got it. Zhang Yue fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Then she dropped an absolute bombshell of a proposal. Once you're discharged from the hospital, I'm taking you to meet my parents. And as long as they give us their blessing, we can finally get married. Get married. Married you froze mid-bite into your apple. You turned your head in disbelief toward the overexcited Zhang Yue. My empress. Since when did we reach this stage of the game? We haven't even officially dated yet, and you're jumping straight to marriage. Isn't this moving a bit too fast? But Zhang Yue wasn't having any of your logic. She put on a look of pure, pitiful grievance, gently resting her small hand over her belly. Little Mu, are you planning to be a total scumbag to me? A little brother Mu might already be growing inside me. You can't just abandon us. Gazing at her acting so incredibly pathetic, you were left completely flabbergasted. Listen, Yue, be honest for a second. We haven't even been on a real date. Directly marrying is way too rushed, don't you think? Besides, I'm not even 22 yet. I don't care. Zhang Yueyue instantly activated her bratty rogue mode. Little Mu, you belong to me. You're mine for the rest of eternity. She was convinced that your kindness was the ultimate proof of love, and she wasn't accepting any counter-arguments. Watching her act like this, a sudden spark flickered in your heart. Your frantic nerves instantly shifted into a wicked playful mood. You leaned in close to her, dropping your voice to a sultry whisper, and asked her teasingly, "In that case, Yueyue, shall we go for another round? You know, just to make sure the little one is properly settled." That single sentence was like a stray feather, tickling the most sensitive part of Zhang Yueyue's heart. In an instant, the stoic CEO's entire body went limp and weak. Her mind was flooded with vivid flashes of her time with you. Her breathing grew heavy and ragged. But after glancing at the daylight streaming through the window, she forced herself to suppress the throbbing in her heart. Biting her lower lip, she shook her head reluctantly. "Little Mu, we can't just do that in broad daylight. How about tonight is tonight, okay? Tonight I'll do whatever you want." At this moment, any thought of ever leaving you had completely vanished. She only wanted you by her side forever. Fine. Whatever my empress says goes. Little Mu obeys. You lowered your head with a deliberate, pitiful pout, acting as if she had just committed some unspeakable crime, looking like a puppy abandoned by the entire world. This tactical move struck Zhang Yueyue's heart with surgical precision. She was instantly overcome with guilt. She truly had zero resistance against your charms. After a moment of hesitation, she reached out a finger and pointed toward her luscious crimson lips, her voice trembling slightly as she offered a compromise. Is using this okay?" Your eyes ignited with a predatory glow, and you began nodding your head like a maniac. Zhang Yueyue shot you a playful, exasperated glare, before cautiously leaning in close. 2 hours later, Zhang Yueyue was in the bathroom vigorously brushing her teeth, her eyes sparkling with a happiness she couldn't hide. You were like a flawless gift bestowed upon her by the heavens, and she vowed to protect you with everything she had, swearing to never let you suffer even a shred of grievance again. But in that very instant, at the thought of the culprit who caused your injuries, her expression underwent a terrifying transformation. In a flash, the ruthless, decisive CEO of Shenzhou Group was back online, as a frigid, murderous aura instantly filled the entire bathroom. She spat out the foam from her mouth, whipped out her phone, and dialed a number. "Xiaoqin, is the file on Xiao Jibo's crimes complete yet?" Her voice was devoid of even a trace of warmth. "Hurry up and throw him in a cage. I won't allow Brother Mu to ever be harmed because of him again." On the other end of the line, Qin Wanying responded immediately. "It's already in motion. We're just missing a few final pieces of evidence under investigation. Make it faster." Zhang Yueyue doubled down on the pressure. "Once the job is done, every person involved gets a 20,000 yuan bonus, and double pay for everyone for the rest of the week." "Understood, President Jiang. I'll get right on it." The sheer power of cold hard cash is undeniable. Shenzhou Group's legal department instantly transformed into a precision war machine, operating at a frantic lethal speed. As Qin Wanying hung up the phone, a chilling glint flashed within her eyes. She muttered under her breath, "How dare you lay a finger on my brother Mu? Xiao Jibo, you've basically signed your own death warrant." The next day arrived the final day of the original agreement. When Zhang Yueyue finally drifted awake, she found herself once again trapped in your shackles and wandering paws. Opening her eyes, Zhang Yueyue didn't even try to struggle. After all, those locks were designed specifically to keep her pinned. Feeling the weight of your embrace, Zhang Yueyue couldn't help but narrow her eyes in bliss, letting out a silly love-struck giggle. She couldn't pinpoint exactly when it started, but bit by bit you had completely invaded her heart. Maybe it was that single warm light you always left on when she got home. Or perhaps it was that unwavering devotion, knowing you'd be there at her beck and call with just a single word. Of course, it could also be that carefree, rebellious attitude, acting like nothing in the world mattered, yet clearly making her the center of your entire universe. Or maybe it was just the way you pampered her every single day, even knowing more about her feminine hygiene supplies than she cared to track herself. They say consistency is the ultimate form of love. Your slow burn, dripping water carves the stone approach was truly the most effective shortcut to a woman's soul. If it weren't for that deep connection, how could she ever tolerate your shameless antics, let alone let you explore her inside and out, top to bottom? However, right at that tender moment, the ward door was silently pushed open an inch. A guilty-looking Li Qingya and Jiang Dongsheng peeked in, carefully scouting the room for any signs of their daughter. After a few seconds of reconnaissance, they didn't see their target and finally let out a sigh of relief. "Yueyue isn't here. She must have gone home to sleep last night." Ugh. Why do I feel like we're a couple of common thieves? We're basically breaking into a hospital room. Jiang Dongsheng felt the exact same way deep down. But that rascal of a boy had specifically instructed them to help pull off a massive surprise for Zhang Yueyue, so they were forced to keep everything under wraps. There's no other way. If our future son-in-law wants to surprise her, what choice do we? Wait a minute. Just as Jiang Dongsheng was about to step into the ward partition to rouse Muge from his slumber, His pupils suddenly constricted in pure shock. Right there on the sofa lay a scattered heap of women's clothing. If his memory served him correctly, those belonged to Zhang Yue, which meant Zhang Dongsheng and Li Qingya's eyes drifted toward the bed, looking at Muga, who was sleeping peacefully under the covers, and they were rendered utterly speechless. The silhouette beneath the duvet was clearly two people. They hadn't noticed from a distance, but now that they were standing right at the foot of the bed, missing it would have been impossible. Zhang Dongsheng and Li Qingya exchanged a knowing look, nodded in unison, and began to stealthily retreat toward the exit, feeling like they were the ones doing something scandalous. But at that moment, Zhang Yue seemed to catch the noise. Her small head popped out from under the blanket, staring in confusion at those two familiar retreating figures. "Dad, Mom, what are you doing? Wait, this is a hospital. Dad, Mom, get out right now. I don't have any clothes on." Hearing that all too familiar voice, Zhang Dongsheng and Li Qingya shared a bitter, awkward glance and accelerated their pace to escape the room. Zhang Yue was now in a state of pure panic, seemingly forgetting the shackles holding her in place, as she struggled to move her body, hissing in a frantic whisper, "Little Mo, wake up now. My parents are here. Tell them to leave." Pop, there was that familiar echoing sound again. You blinked your bleary sleep-deprived eyes, withdrawing smoothly as you asked in total confusion. "So, they're here, so what? What are you so scared of?" At this point, you weren't even fully awake yet. You just thought Zhang Yue was overreacting. The moment you successfully withdrew your shackles, and without the restriction of the fixed lock, Zhang Yue shot a frantic, cautious glance at the doorway. Only after confirming her parents had retreated, did she scramble out of bed, snatching up her clothes to cover herself in a hurry. As she wrestled her garments back on, her heart was pounding in a state of sheer chaos. She hadn't even had the chance to introduce little Mu to them yet. Would her parents mistake him for some random delinquent? With that terrifying thought swirling in her mind, Zhang Yue couldn't help but stare at you, gazing at your thick jet black hair. She finally let out a tiny sigh of relief. Thank goodness, he's not some bleached blonde punk. Mom and Dad shouldn't be too hard on him. Once Zhang Yue was fully dressed and composed, she suddenly realized you had somehow drifted back to sleep. A pampered, helpless smile spread across her face. "Fine then, you just keep on dreaming. I'll go out and handle the situation with my parents." At this point, Zhang Yue's entire world revolved around you. She refused to let you face any scrutiny or grievance from her folks. She decided to head out first to test the waters and see where they stood. If they showed any sign of disapproval, she would lay out every single act of kindness you'd shown her this past year. In Zhang Yue's heart, Zhang Dongsheng and Li Qingya were always incredibly open-minded. Surely they would accept you once they heard the truth. But before she could even take a few steps toward the door, it swung open once again. Li Qingya poked her head inside, scouting to see if Zhang Yue was decent yet. Seeing that her daughter was fully clothed, she dragged Zhang Dongsheng back into the room. She was still clutching that same insulated lunchbox from yesterday. "Yue, you're finally awake. Quick, wake up our son-in-law for his chicken soup. He needs all the nourishment he can get." Just as Zhang Yue was about to stammer out an explanation, Li Qingya beamed a radiant smile at the figure on the bed, who was just now fluttering his bleary eyes open. "Huh, Mom, Dad, why are you guys here so early? It's not even 6 o'clock yet, right?" At that moment, you also realized Li Qingya and Zhang Dongsheng were standing there staring back in surprise. You were completely oblivious to Zhang Yue's internal panic. But to her, this entire interaction was nothing short of a miracle. Mom, Dad, Brother Mu actually called them Mom and Dad. When on earth did they even meet each other? Zhang Yue felt like the world had suddenly become unrecognizable. Why were Brother Mu and her parents acting so incredibly close? But before Zhang Yue could even utter a question, she saw her usually stiff and traditional father. Zhang Dongsheng walked straight to the foot of the bed, setting up the overbed table, and sliding it right in front of Muge. "You little rascal, your mother was terrified you'd go hungry. She was wide awake before 7 p.m. last night, and up at 3 a.m. to stew this chicken soup. Drink up. Come on, get up and have some." "Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mom. You guys are seriously too good to me. I'm the luckiest guy alive." Now fully conscious, you started playing up the charm again, making Li Qingya beam with joy as she looked at you. She happily ladled out the soup. "Oh, my dear boy. As long as you enjoy it, that's all that matters. How are you feeling? Is the pain still unbearable? Should I call the doctor to give you another checkup?" Standing nearby, Zhang Dongsheng heard the question, and his gaze sharpened with concern. "Looking at you while you remain tucked under the covers. Much better. The medicine was applied just in time, so there's no lasting damage." The three of them chatted away like a real family, completely sidelining the actual biological daughter Zhang Yue. Zhang Yue found the whole situation a bit hard to process, but seeing Zhang Dongsheng and Li Qingya adore you so much, she couldn't help herself. Her eyes curved into crescents of pure bliss. You were truly the greatest gift the heavens had ever bestowed upon her. As you rustled around under the blanket to get your clothes on, a terrifying realization suddenly dawned on you. You whipped your head around to see Zhang Yue standing there grinning. Crap, I'm exposed. That accidental panicked mumble was heard loud and clear by Zhang Dongsheng and Li Qingya. The elderly couple just shared a silly knowing smirk and turned their gaze toward the woman standing by the bed. With her eyes narrowed in a smile, Zhang Yue. Zhang Dongsheng and Li Qingya both let out a massive sigh of relief. The look on Zhang Yue's face meant she wasn't angry at all. In fact, she seemed to be thoroughly enjoying the secret. But what you were actually sweating over was that the agreement hadn't officially expired yet. Some things weren't meant to be brought into the light just yet. Unfortunately, the old couple had no idea. Brother Mu, you better start explaining yourself. Exactly when did you meet my parents? You're calling them mom and dad with more affection than I do, even though she clearly wasn't holding a grudge. The absurdity of the scene left Zhang Yue dying of curiosity. Just how on earth did you pull this off? Including Jiang Ziming, who dropped by yesterday. It seemed all 4 members of the Jiang clan had been completely conquered by you. It was simply mind-blowing. Mistress, this is all just a massive misunderstanding. You have to trust your little Mu. Little Mu's loyalty to you is absolute, as clear as the sun and the moon. As if terrified, Zhang Yue wouldn't believe you. The sheer grief and indignation in your voice was dramatic enough to make it snow in the middle of July. Seeing you revert back to your usual shamelessly unreliable self, Zhang Dongsheng, Li Qingya, and Zhang Yue exchanged a quick look and burst into a collective fit of laughter. You little brat, always playing the clown. Oh, my dear boy. You really are a riot. Little Mu, talk properly. You let out a pitiful, wronged little sigh, staring intensely at the chicken soup on the overbed table, as you spoke in a weak, fragile voice. Mom, Dad, Yue, I need to eat first. I'm starving. Can we talk later? Seeing you eagerly dive into the chicken soup, the 3 of them didn't have the heart to disturb you. After all, you were recovering from an injury. It was only natural to have a ravenous appetite. Of course, that was strictly Li Qingya's innocent perspective. Zhang Dongsheng discreetly glanced at the tissues in the trash bin and caught the faint lingering scent in the air. The look of pure satisfaction in his eyes impossible to hide. As for the one actually involved, Zhang Yue knew better than anyone just how hard Brother Mu had worked last night to nourish her and struggle for the sake of a little brother Mu. Being hungry was more than justified. However, when Zhang Yue noticed her father's gaze drifting toward the trash, a fiery crimson blush instantly scorched her entire face. Knowing her father all too well, Zhang Yue recognized that proud look and felt a mix of immense joy and soul-crushing embarrassment. To think her own father had caught on to their extracurricular activities. Only after you finished the entire container of soup did you let out a satisfied burp, leaning back comfortably against the headboard of the bed. The faint, lingering sting of your wounds was still there, but it was nowhere near enough to dampen your spirits now. You glanced toward Zhang Dongsheng and Li Qingya lounging on the sofa. Mom, Dad, why are you guys here so early? Did you even get enough sleep? Since the cat was already out of the bag, you didn't see any point in playing coy anymore. Besides, your relationship with Zhang Yue was basically heading for marriage, so keeping secrets felt totally unnecessary. Well, actually, we assumed Yue would have gone home to sleep, so we arrived early to avoid a literal collision. Zhang Dongsheng finished his sentence with a deeply meaningful look at the 2 of you, his eyes lingering on the trash bin right next to the bed. That single glance made the already blushing Zhang Yue want to vanish into thin air. She shot a ferocious daggers-drawn glare at you, her eyes swimming with indignant resentment. Haha, Yue was worried about me, so she stayed the night. It turned into quite the hilarious situation, didn't it? You sat there scratching your messy bedhead hair, offering a goofy air-headed explanation. No worries at all. Yue staying here to look after you is actually for the best. That way, we might get to hold our granddaughter a little sooner. Dad, tell Mom to stop. Do you hear the nonsense she's spouting? Upon hearing Li Qingya's bold remark, the crimson flush on Zhang Yue's face deepened as she grumpily clung to Zhang Dongsheng's arm, acting like a spoiled child. Seeing his daughter act so adorable a side of her she hadn't shown since starting college, Zhang Dongsheng felt a surge of warmth. He let out a hearty, satisfied laugh. Your mother is absolutely right. You should have a few kids while you're both young. We're still energetic enough to help you raise them. Don't you worry, Dad, I'll make sure Yue delivers one for each of you within 3 years. With your legendary thick skin. You clearly didn't know the meaning of the word restraint. Hearing the expectations of your future in-laws, you thumped your chest and made a solemn vow. Whoa, Mom and Dad, you're here too. Brother-in-law, I've come to see you. I brought those famous pan-fried buns from the old district. Quick, eat them while they're piping hot. Right at that moment, the ward door swung open once again. Zhang Daiming's silhouette sauntered into the room, lugging several bags filled with steaming hot breakfast. In that instant, Zhang Yue finally understood. You were absolutely playing her yesterday. Judging by Jiang Ziming's unwavering devotion, it was clear he'd already accepted you. This brother-in-law bond definitely didn't come from just a couple of casual home-cooked meals. At this point, Zhang Yueyue was actually amused by your sheer audacity. It turned out her entire family of 4 had already been conquered by you. Little Moo, you really are something else. No wonder a high and mighty CEO of Shenzhou Group like me ended up falling so hard into your arms. It turns out even my parents, the chairman of Shenzhou Group, the chairman's wife, and the young master, none of them escaped your clutches. Perhaps due to some mysterious soul connection. You seemed to decode Zhang Yueyue's mixture of exasperation and amusement. You shot her a deep, meaningful look in return, leaving her slightly bewildered by the intensity of your gaze. Meanwhile, Jiang Ziming had already spread out the mountain of breakfast on the table, grinning ear to ear as he spoke to you. Brother-in-law, eat up, get well soon, so you can make me more of that gourmet food. You rubbed your belly, which was currently bloating from a whole pot of chicken soup, and looking into Jiang Ziming's hopeful, sparkling eyes, you took a deep, bracing breath and gave a solemn nod. Fine. You looked exactly like a man heading toward an executioner's block, making Li Qingya burst into another fit of laughter. Even the stoic Jiang Dongsheng couldn't help but shake his head in defeat. Yet one had to admit, ever since you stepped through the doors of the Jiang household, the once cold and lifeless family atmosphere had been injected with pure joy. Over the past year, Jiang Dongsheng truly felt like he had de-aged by a decade. It was unavoidable. With a wild card like Muge dropping by the house to cause chaos, it was impossible to stay unhappy for long. Li Qingya felt exactly the same way deep down. Her affection for you was even starting to surpass the love she felt for her own biological children. As for Jiang Ziming, he held every act of your kindness close to his heart. Otherwise, he wouldn't have driven across the city at the crack of dawn just to fetch you the perfect breakfast. Standing to the side, Zhang Yueyue finally let her heart settle completely into her stomach. She watched the radiant happiness of her family with a beaming smile. And when her gaze finally landed on you, it was overflowing with an incredible tender devotion. The final day of the contract passed by in a blur of laughter and joy among the family of 5. Yes, a family of 5. Throughout the entire day, Jiang Dongsheng, Li Qingya, and Jiang Ziming refused to leave the hospital, staying by your side through the entire ordeal. This gave Muge a profound sense of warmth and comfort, at least in this massive cold city. There were people who genuinely cared about his well-being. By evening, Li Qingya, who had been awake since 3 in the morning, showed clear signs of exhaustion beneath her eyes. She looked at you apologetically. Moo Mom is getting a bit sleepy, so I'll leave Yueyue here to keep you company. I'll bring you more fresh soup tomorrow morning. Mom, I've already recovered for the most part. I'll be discharged from the hospital tomorrow anyway. Tomorrow I'll be the one cooking for you instead. Please just stay home and get some proper rest. You quickly interjected before Li Qingya could argue. After all, Li Qingya wasn't getting any younger, and waking up at such ungodly hours would eventually take a toll on her health. All day long, you had noticed her fighting back the fatigue. Yet even in her weakened state, the elderly woman insisted on staying in the hospital for you. You weren't the type to take such kindness for granted. Knowing when to stop and show appreciation is what truly matters. Alright then, Mom will be waiting for you at home tomorrow. After watching Jiang Dongsheng, Li Qingya and Jiang Ziming finally depart, Zhang Yueyue took her seat by the edge of the bed. Her dazzling eyes shimmered like a pair of brilliant stars. Little Moo explained to Her Highness, "How are you so tight with my parents?" You call her mom more naturally than I do. Gazing at Zhang Yueyue's flawless face less than a foot away from your own, you couldn't help but gulp nervously, sensing your visceral reaction. Zhang Yueyue's lovely face flushed a deep shade of crimson. A shimmering misty glaze rose in her eyes, making her look absolutely irresistible. "My mistress, let little Moo provide you with some nourishment." Your voice dropped into a low husky rasp. Ever since you finally won Zhang Yueyue over, it seemed you possessed zero resistance against her charms. The watery glimmer in Zhang Yueyue's eyes intensified. She didn't utter a single word, simply staring silently at the man before her, sharing a telepathic connection with her. You instantly understood exactly what she wanted. With extreme tenderness, you pulled Zhang Yueyue into your embrace and pressed your lips firmly against her tantalizing red mouth. Outside the ward, the elderly couple was still lingering, listening to the sudden commotion coming from inside. They found themselves momentarily frozen, not knowing where to put their hands. Their paternity test results had finally arrived. The 4th child was definitely not their biological son. This meant the boy inside that hospital room was likely the one swapped at birth. But for 2 consecutive nights now, the scandalous sounds echoing from the ward had left the elderly couple completely stunned and at a loss for words. "Old Moo, how can this boy be so reckless with his own health? He's sustained such brutal injuries, yet he carries on like this every single day." The middle-aged man, addressed as Old Moo, was equally flustered and bewildered at that moment. He had been young once too, so he naturally understood the fiery passion of young lovers. However, regarding the commotion outside your door, you had long since been aware of their presence. You simply didn't care enough to stop. As the minutes ticked away, The couple went from complaining to utter shock, until they eventually became completely numb. It had been over 2 hours. As a woman, she knew exactly what those 2 hours implied, especially since the noise inside was anything but subtle. For a moment, her aged face couldn't handle the embarrassment. Even old Moo looked visibly startled, his mind racing with a mix of pride and doubt. Is this kid really my own flesh and blood? I usually only last 2 minutes, but the sounds from the ward were undeniable and raw. The couple didn't want to start on the wrong foot, by offending the boy before they even officially met. After all, they were the ones who had made the mistake. Not until the clock struck midnight did the intensity inside finally fade into a soft, lingering gasp. Just as the middle-aged woman prepared to knock on the door, a nurse from the station marched over to them. "Excuse me, please do not disturb the patient in this room. If you have business with him, you can return during daytime hours." Clearly, the elderly couple hadn't expected this, even after waiting outside for such an eternity. Another obstacle had suddenly appeared. The middle-aged woman tried to explain. "We only wish to see the young man inside. We don't have any bad intentions." Whether the nurse believed that excuse or not remained a mystery, but she simply pointed gracefully at the clock on the wall. "You two should go get some rest first. The patient inside has known for a while, Anicho Woko. If the patient wanted to see you, he would have come out long ago. It's already midnight. Please do not disturb the patient any further." The elderly couple clearly didn't expect the nurse to be so blunt. After exchanging a brief defeated look, they nodded in reluctant agreement. After all, those who could afford this private hospital owned by Shenzhou Group were either incredibly wealthy or held immense power. The Mu family's base of operations wasn't in Jiangdong, so they lacked the influence to force their way in. The nurse watched the couple depart before, casting a lingering sideways glance toward your ward. A sudden vivid blush crept up her cheeks. After all, your room was the closest one to the nurse's station, an intentional arrangement made by the director himself. In case you required any medical assistance, a nurse could rush to your side in an instant to resolve any potential issues for you. As a result, every single sound echoing from your room had been heard crystal clear by the staff at the station. 2 or 3 solid hours. President Zhang is truly one lucky woman. That's the kind of stamina most women can only dream of. If you had any inkling of what the nurse was thinking, you'd have been mortified enough to wish the ground would swallow you whole. You had actually assumed the soundproofing in this hospital was top tier, since the commotion was so loud yesterday, and no one had filed a single complaint. You had completely let loose today, inside the ward. Zhang Yue was currently nestled in your arms, looking blissfully content. Once again, she found herself locked in by your protective grip. Yet, she didn't harbor a single shred of resentment. That's because she had just realized something monumental. Her monthly visitor, which was supposed to arrive today, was a no-show. Even the usual pre-cycle cramps were nowhere to be felt. Perhaps the mission to conceive a little Mu had actually been a success. Early the next morning, your internal biological clock nudged you awake. You were the first to open your eyes. The agonizing pain in your back had almost entirely vanished, which left you feeling absolutely ecstatic. Being a major shareholder in this hospital really had its perks. After giving her a few final playful squeezes, you slowly untangled yourself from the sleeping grumbling Zhang Yue. The familiar sound of her sleep mumbling seemed to be the trigger to release her. Whistling to yourself, you grabbed your clothes and got dressed, gazing at the still slumbering Zhang Yue on the bed. An uncontrollably doting smile spread across your face. You quietly crept toward the door and slipped out. However, the moment you stepped out of the ward, that middle-aged couple was sitting silently on the nearby bench, looking as though they had been waiting for an eternity. "You two have been loitering outside my ward for days now. Is there something you want?" The goofy, playful version of you seen with Zhang Yue was gone. Your expression was now frostier than ice. One could easily mistake you for a cold, overbearing CEO. As you stared them down, the couple's gaze instantly locked onto your face, a masterpiece that looked hand-carved by the gods. For a split second, they both fell into a dazed trance. The resemblance to a young old Mu was absolutely uncanny. "Child, could we ask a few questions about your family?" The middle-aged woman finally hit her breaking point with the suspense, venturing a question with extreme caution. Beside her, old Mu fixed his burning, intense gaze upon you, desperately hanging onto your every word. In contrast, you simply dismissed the tension with a wave of your hand. The moment your eyes landed on old Mu, you had already deduced exactly what was going on. After all, you were incredibly vain when it came to your looks, spending ages admiring yourself in the mirror every single day. Naturally, you understood why these two were seeking you out. "I have a fairly good idea why you're looking for me, so I'll just get straight to the point." You paused for a beat, seemingly calculating your next choice of words. After a long silence, under the couple's hopeful and trembling gaze, you began to explain yourself with a chilling sense of detachment. "Sir, you likely noticed that our features are strikingly similar, and concluded that I must be your biological son. The reason you're only realizing this now is probably because of a hospital mix-up at birth that never crossed your minds to double-check. But the second you saw my face, those doubts finally surfaced. Am I hitting the mark?" "Precisely. Hearing the boy, who was likely his own flesh and blood, refer to him so formally as Sir, left a bitter taste in old Moo's mouth. Nevertheless, he nodded solemnly, anxious to hear what you would say next. The middle-aged woman beside him remained silent throughout, her eyes glued to you with unwavering intensity, anticipating your subsequent words. As you can see, I've built a life of my own now, and I have zero desire to have it disrupted, even if I truly am your long-lost child. It's inevitable that drama will erupt with that imposter currently in your home. The fact that you're at this elite private hospital proves your family is well off, and that fake son has enjoyed 20 years of your wealth and privilege. He's definitely not going to just walk away quietly. At the same time, after 2 decades of bonding and memories, you obviously won't be able to just discard him either. So my sudden appearance is a guaranteed recipe for conflict. In the heat of that inevitable chaos, I have no interest in participating, nor am I willing to gamble on which one of us you would actually choose to believe. Therefore, please just act like you never even saw me, since you let me get snatched away the moment I was born, regardless of what the reason was. I have zero faith that you would ever truly take my side. So instead of wasting your precious time here on me, you'd be better off going back to your perfect little lives. At least if I don't show up, that fake won't feel any pressure or threat, and your family dynamic won't be shattered into pieces. This heart-to-heart, brutally honest monologue of yours instantly rendered the elderly Moo couple speechless and shell-shocked. It wasn't that your words were illogical, it was that they were terrifyingly accurate. They knew exactly what kind of person the fourth son was. They knew his character better than anyone. After all, back at the manor, as the youngest child in the family, everyone had utterly spoiled and doted on him. If you suddenly returned to claim your rightful place, it would absolutely destroy the harmony of their household. When push comes to shove, just like you predicted, they would instinctively side with the child they've raised for 20 years. As for the idea of kicking the imposter out, even after seeing the DNA test results, that thought hadn't crossed their minds for even a second. After all 2 decades of living under one roof, even without a drop of shared blood, creates a bond of kinship that is impossible to simply erase. It was at this exact moment that the middle-aged woman, fighting back a wave of bitterness, finally spoke up for the first time. Child, none of that stuff really matters. If things ever do get a little tense between you two, you can just endure it and let it pass right. Hearing the middle-aged woman's delusional, self-centered logic, it wasn't just you who was stunned. Even old Moo stared at his lifelong partner in complete and utter disbelief. And right then and there, suddenly the door to the ward swung open. An ice-cold Jiang Yueyue emerged, the sharp click of her high heels echoing rhythmically against the floor, as everyone's eyes locked onto her commanding presence. The middle-aged woman couldn't help but offer a patronizing chuckle. So this, my child, must be your little girlfriend. She's quite the beauty. She can come back with us as well when the time comes. Though her tone was superficially gentle, it carried an insufferable air of superiority, as if her charity was a given. Listen closely, lady, setting aside for a moment the question of whether you're actually Muge's biological mother, even if you truly were. The moment you suggested his birthright should yield to an imposter. You lost any right to give him orders. And you're the Mu family, correct? A mere second-rate clan from Zhonghai. Where do you get the audacity to act so high and mighty in my presence? Jiang Yueyue didn't give the elderly couple a shred of face, directly ripping away the middle-aged woman's mask of hypocrisy. With a scathing, disdainful sneer, those biting words left the Mu couple absolutely speechless and mortified, completely unable to find a single retort to Jiang Yueyue's claims. Old Mu finally recognized Jiang Yueyue's true identity, his pupils shrinking in a sudden surge of pure terror. Their entire mission in Jiangdong was to secure a partnership with her family. President Jiang, you are old Mu immediately cast aside his ego, inquiring with extreme trembling caution. However, the middle-aged woman failed to grasp the gravity of the situation. The moment she heard the title President Jiang, her eyes lit up with predatory greed, as she exclaimed happily, "Isn't this just perfect? The boy's father and I came to Jiangdong specifically, seeking a massive collaboration with Shenzhou Group. Since we're all family now, doesn't that make this business deal a whole lot easier?" It was at that exact moment that you finally reached your breaking point. You let out a harsh, chilling laugh. "I'm sorry, but who exactly is family with you? If I was truly swapped at birth, then in 20 long years, you never once bothered to look for me. Where do you find the nerve to stand there and tell me that we belong together, out of respect for your old age? I'm trying my best not to be too cruel, but for God's sake, have a little dignity. Don't you agree, madam?" The middle-aged woman clearly never expected such cold words to come from you, leaving her utterly speechless and stunned. Seeing her silence, you didn't back down. Instead, you shifted your piercing gaze toward old Mu, continuing your relentless verbal assault. The fact that you lost your son is your own personal tragedy, but you can't just grab every stranger who resembles you and insist they're your long-lost child, can you? I hope this is the last time we cross paths. Without another word, you gripped Jiang Yueyue's hand and headed for the elevator. refusing to give the couple another second to respond. As Muga and Zhang Yueyue's figures finally vanished from sight, old Mu turned a dark, thunderous expression toward his wife. What kind of twisted mindset possessed you to say that? To tell that boy to just endure it? Why on earth should he have to tolerate that brat? I just didn't want Baichuan to feel neglected. We've raised him for over 20 years after all. So your solution is to let your biological son suffer instead, right? Well, congratulations. Now he wants absolutely nothing to do with you. Honestly, I don't blame him. He's right. Why should he go back? What reason does he have to return to that broken home of ours? The middle-aged woman looked like she had swallowed a lemon, unable to conjure a single coherent rebuttal. She stood there frozen in a state of shock. Once you led Zhang Yueyue out of the hospital, a mischievous urge to tease her suddenly bubbled up. Stopping in your tracks, you shot her a playful, mocking look. Well, I guess this is the end? My queen, our contract officially expires today. Zhang Yueyue, who had been wondering why you stopped, suddenly stiffened, her face turning pale with pure dread. She threw her arms around your waist, clinging to you with all her might, tears already beginning to well up in her panicked eyes. No, I won't allow it, little Mu. You're mine, you belong to me forever. I'm not letting you leave me. You've already planted your seed inside me. You hadn't anticipated such an explosive reaction from her, and her final desperate scream left you momentarily dazed. It's true what they say, pregnant women can be incredibly emotional. Wait, did Zhang Yueyue actually conceive? Come to think of it, her period never showed up yesterday. Could I really be about to become a father? She didn't seem to show up yesterday either. Wait, am I actually about to become a father? My queen, now that the contract has expired, isn't it time for little Mu to get a permanent promotion? You stammered out the rest of your sentence as fast as possible, terrified that Zhang Yueyue might actually flee in a fit of rage. Zhang Yueyue, who had been death-gripping your waist, froze for a split second upon hearing your final words. Her frantic heart skipped a beat as she cautiously lifted her head from your chest. Little Mu, you're not lying to me, are you? You really won't ever leave my side? Of course not. With such a perfect queen by my side, how could I ever bear to walk away? An ecstatic Zhang Yueyue completely abandoned her composed image, cheering out loud while buried in your embrace. Her large eyes narrowed into adorable crescent moons, looking impossibly cute. All right, enough. I promised Mom I'd cook a feast for her today. Let's head out. Little Mu. Let's go. Wait, let me call Uncle Zhao to pick us up. No need for that. Our ride is already here. The moment the words left your lips, a sleek black Maybach pulled up smoothly in front of you both. Not bothering to check the license plate, Zhang Yueyue assumed it was hers and climbed into the back seat without a second thought. It wasn't until you hopped in that she realized the driver wasn't. Uncle Zhao, she turned to you with wide, inquisitive eyes, blinking with that signature innocence, unique to a wide-eyed college student. Fourth bro, take us to the Zhang family estate. You got it, boss. Old Fourth spun the steering wheel, flooring it as he sped toward the Zhang ancestral home. Zhang Yueyue was burning with curiosity regarding this brother of yours. According to every background check she'd run, you were a lone orphan who grew up in an institution. Wait, the orphanage Old Fourth. Did you grow up in the same orphanage as him? Driven by curiosity, Zhang Yueyue adopted your nickname for him and directed her question to the driver. That's right, sister-in-law. Boss and I grew up side by side in that orphanage. Zhang Yueyue nodded, wearing an I totally get it now expression, completely failing to ask the most important question. Like, for instance, where the hell did this Maybach come from? She didn't even pause to wonder why your brother was so filthy rich. The thought didn't even cross her mind. As the car cruised past a massive shopping mall, something suddenly clicked in Muge's mind. He hastily called out, Old Fourth, pull over. Wait here for me for a bit. Copy that, boss. Glancing at the supposedly sleeping Zhang Yueyue, you couldn't resist planting a gentle kiss on her forehead before slipping out of the car. What you failed to notice, however, was that the second you stepped out, Zhang Yueyue peeked through one eye, watching your retreating back with a beaming, radiant smile. Roughly 20 minutes later, you returned lugging 3 cups of milk tea. Handing the red bean mochi flavor to Zhang Yueyue, you smirked. Here you go, my queen. Your absolute favorite, red bean mochi milk tea. Please enjoy, Old Fourth. Here's your lemonade. Make do with it. Zhang Yueyue squinted happily as she accepted the drink, noticing you'd already thoughtfully poked the straw in for her. She took a huge, satisfied gulp through the straw, looking like she was in absolute heaven. Meanwhile, Old Fourth was visibly shaken by your uncharacteristically simp-like behavior. He barely knew how he managed to drive the rest of the way. Thankfully, you reached the Zhang ancestral estate without any accidents. Finally, under your heavy, meaningful gaze, he hurriedly sped away. If he didn't leave now, he feared you might actually snap at him. After all, who had ever seen the legendary, decisive you acting so submissive? The next morning, you woke up as usual. Your hips felt a bit stiff and sore this time. The bed at the ancestral home just wasn't as plush as the one in the villa. Reluctantly, you disentangled yourself from that warm, fragrant embrace. The familiar mumbles from her were as sweet as ever, and incredibly tempting. You didn't even realize when it happened. But holding her to sleep had become your ultimate habit. Leaning down, you pressed a soft kiss onto Zhang Yueyue's smooth forehead, then slipped into your clothes and slippers, creeping downstairs as quietly as a cat. You prepared to whip up a gourmet breakfast for the family. Stepping into the kitchen, you swung the refrigerator door open wide. The sight of the fridge packed to the brim warmed your heart. It seemed Mom and Dad Zhang were truly traumatized by your last raid. You skillfully grabbed a prime cut of lean pork and a handful of shiitake mushrooms. Shiitake pork congee was Zhang Yueyue's ultimate comfort food. After spending a year by her side, her every preference was already etched into your soul. Plus, this specific dish happened to suit your in-laws' palates perfectly. Moments later, the sound of footsteps echoed from the stairs. Zhang Dongsheng and Li Qingya descended together hand in hand, seeing you already hard at work in the kitchen so early. The elderly couple couldn't hide their gratified smiles. Miu Gyu, is that wound on your back still bothering you? Your mother-in-law's concerned voice broke your concentration. You pivoted toward them, wearing your trademark charismatic grin, as your tongue outpaced your brain with a playful quip. Mom, I'm feeling much better. Besides, you look more radiant without makeup than those A-list stars on TV. Dad is seriously the luckiest man alive. The second those words left your mouth, Li Qingya's face lit up with a grin she couldn't suppress, smoothing out every tiny wrinkle at the corners of her eyes. What woman doesn't crave that kind of flattery? Especially when it's served up by her own son-in-law. Beside her, Zhang Dongsheng shook his head in mock defeat, clearly accustomed to your smooth-talking antics, yet completely powerless against them. He had been praising his wife for decades, yet he'd never seen her look quite this delighted. You had officially turned kissing up into a masterpiece of fine art. Your eyes caught your father-in-law's subtle head shake, and you pounced on the opportunity instantly. You deliberately dragged out your words for dramatic effect. Dad, why the head shake? Don't tell me you're getting tired of Mom already. Tisk, tisk, men these days. This massive unexpected black pot of blame dropped from the sky, slamming into Zhang Dongsheng before he could even react. Sensing the dangerous glint in his wife's narrowing eyes, he scrambled to defend himself. You brat, what kind of nonsense are you spewing? Are you not a man yourself? You simply smirked and remained silent, the teasing look on your face only intensifying. Zhang Dongsheng's heart skipped a beat in panic. He realized he had walked straight into a trap. Sure enough, Li Qingya immediately leaned into the drama, letting out a deep, heavy sigh. Sigh, Muge. Your mother's just getting old, I guess. Look at your father already starting to get tired of me. How am I supposed to live like this? Maybe I should just move back in with you two lovebirds. Great idea, Mom. You immediately played along with the bit, completely throwing your father-in-law under the bus. The three of us can live happily ever after, and let Dad stay here all by himself. Listening to this mother-son duo team up on him, Zhang Dongsheng was filled with instant regret. How did he fall for this trap again? He clearly hadn't learned his lesson with this kid's silver tongue. Just as Zhang Dongsheng was scratching his head in a frantic panic, a lazy, sleepy voice drifted down from the top of the stairs. What are you all whispering about? It's so lively down here. It was Zhang Yueyue. She let out a massive yawn. Yuigo, shuffling down with sleepy eyes and messy hair. Zhang Dongsheng was just about to open his mouth to complain, but he only saw a dark shadow streak past him like a bolt of lightning, fast as an agile mountain cat. When he focused his eyes, who else could it be but you? In the next heartbeat, your voice dripping with exaggerated concern and flattery rang out. My glorious queen, why didn't you sleep a bit longer? Why did you walk down all by yourself? You only had to call for me and I'd be there. Quickly, let me carry you over to the sofa. You lunged forward in a few strides, expertly sweeping Zhang Yueyue up in a princess carry, and heading toward the living room with eyes full of fake devotion, cradled in your arms. She narrowed her eyes in pure bliss, wrapping her arms tightly around your neck, like a pampered kitten that finally found its home. This scene left your in-laws standing there absolutely dumbfounded. Was this really their stoic, cold-faced daughter, who they once feared would stay single forever? The moment you gently placed her onto the sofa, Zhang Yueyue started rubbing her tummy, looking up at you with the most pathetic puppy dog eyes. She didn't care at all that her parents were watching. Little Moo, I'm starving. Your Majesty. Just 1 second. Acting more panicked than she was, you spun around and sprinted back toward the kitchen. Breakfast today features your favorite savory pork congee and crispy pancakes. It wasn't until your silhouette vanished into the kitchen that Zhang Yueyue finally noticed her parents' bizarre lingering stares. In a heartbeat, the ruthless CEO, who usually dominated the boardroom, felt a crimson flush surge all the way to her ears. Oh no, she totally forgot her parents were standing right there. My Yueyue, what's gotten into you? Your face is as red as a tomato. Li Qingya seized the rare chance to tease her daughter, her eyes sparkling with undeniable shock and amusement, to get back into his wife's good graces. Zhang Dongsheng immediately chimed in. Qingya, watch your tone. Yueyue is simply showing what true love looks like. I won't have you criticizing her. Hearing him speak, one would swear you were their actual flesh and blood. While Zhang Yueyue was just a daughter-in-law they barely knew. Just then, you emerge from the kitchen balancing a steaming pot of kanji. Hearing your father-in-law daring to tease your queen, you stepped in instantly. Dad, you still haven't explained your behavior toward mom yet. And now you're picking on Yue too. This won't do. I refuse to let my mother-in-law suffer like this. Pack your bags, Mom. You're moving in. With us today. That absolute wild take instantly plunged all three members of the Zhang family into a bizarre silence. Everyone knew Zhang Dongsheng was just joking. But somehow in your mouth it became a full-blown scandal. The logic was questionable, but your delivery was flawless. Watching them stare at each other in speechless disbelief, you let out a mischievous chuckle. You carefully ladled out a bowl of steaming kanji, blowing on it gently before placing it on the coffee table before Zhang Yue. Careful, my queen, it's hot. The pancakes are coming right up. I've already sliced them. I'll bring them over now. Okay. Little Moo, you're the absolute best. Zhang Yue, once again forgetting her parents existed, happily pecked you on the cheek with a look of pure bliss. She was the picture of contentment. Beside them, Zhang Dongsheng and Li Qingya exchanged a weary look, realizing they probably didn't even need breakfast anymore. The dog food you were serving had already made them full. However, once you had already ladled out their portions at the table, the elderly couple reluctantly sat down to eat. You bustled about to ensure their breakfast was perfection, before diving headfirst back into the kitchen. Observing this domestic scene, Zhang Dongsheng's heart swelled with profound relief. With you around, his daughter's future was guaranteed to be filled with bliss. As for a career, the Zhang family might lack many things, but cold hard cash definitely wasn't one of them. As long as you two lovebirds were content, nothing else in the world truly mattered. After the meal concluded, you and Zhang Yue bid the elders a warm farewell, leading her by her delicate hand to the waiting car. You gave Yue a final careful reminder. Don't let work distract you from eating. Whatever you're craving for dinner tonight, just let me know in advance, and I'll have it ready for you. She nodded with total obedience, her eyes shimmering with a sense of dependency and affection that she didn't even try to hide. Zhang Yue could vividly feel the shift in your genuine care and devotion. It was so palpable. It made her heart flutter with warmth, rendering her completely indifferent to her icy CEO image in front of her staff. Only after watching the Maybach merge into the sea of traffic did the smile on your face slowly begin to fade. Turning on your heel with a purposeful stride, you began a leisurely trek toward a wet market several kilometers away. To you, this wasn't just a simple walk. It was a high-stakes game of wits. You relished the psychological warfare against those loudmouthed vendors, who constantly tried to cheat customers with rigged scales. Armed with your own portable hanging scale, you were always the ultimate victor. The local grandpas and grandmas viewed you with a mix of love and loathing. At least that was your take on the situation. However, fate had other plans for your morning. A sleek business van had been tailing you stealthily for some time. Inside, the elderly Mu couple and their three daughters watched you through the glass, their expressions a chaotic mess of conflicting emotions. When the paternity test results first surfaced, the sisters assumed their parents had finally lost their minds. But staring at your face now, a near-perfect mirror image of their father, the three daughters were struck by a heavy, stifling silence. Dad, are you absolutely certain he's one of us? The eldest sister, Mu Wushuang, furrowed her brow in visible disapproval. Your casual, carefree attitude was light years away from the refined brother she had always envisioned. She found the reality hard to swallow. Determined what? Old man Mu was seething with rage, shooting a sharp glare at his silent wife beside him. Your mother completely crossed the line and offended him yesterday. That boy flat out told us to act like we've never met. The three sisters turned toward their mother with looks of pure disbelief. As for that brother they had raised for over 20 years, any lingering affection vanished the moment the truth surfaced. In fact, the eldest sister Mu Wushuang felt a wave of absolute disgust whenever she remembered how Mu Chen had tried to shower with her multiple times. Once the crack in their so-called family bond appeared, it became an irreparable chasm. Now their only desire was to finally meet their real biological brother. Knock, knock, knock. The car window was suddenly tapped from the outside. Mu Wushuang rolled down the glass, only to find you the very person they had been tailing standing there. She froze in shock. With your hands shoved casually in your pockets, you calmly surveyed the 5 people inside the vehicle. Your voice carried not a single ripple of emotion, as if you were staring at a group of total strangers. Didn't I make myself perfectly clear yesterday? Why are you stalking me? This icy interrogation pierced through Old Man Moo's heart like a thorn. His throat felt parched as he forced out a raspy, almost desperate plea. Son, can you just do one DNA test with us? I need to know if you are, is it really that important? You ruthlessly cut the old man off mid-sentence, your tone as cold as a winter blizzard. You weren't there for the first 20 years of my life, and I don't need you for the rest. What does the truth even change? Your rebellious and unyielding stance caused the atmosphere inside the van to instantly freeze over. Mu Yulu, who was roughly the same age as you, was the first to shatter the silence. attempting to tempt you with the allure of cold hard cash. If it's confirmed you're our brother, the Mu family fortune will be partially yours. We're talking about a massive inheritance. Aren't you even a little tempted? For a split second, you actually were tempted. Who doesn't love money? But you chose to remain stoic, silently watching their pathetic performance. Mu Wuxuang, the eldest, noticing your lack of reaction, softened her tone slightly. She attempted to play the emotional family card. Little brother, come home. It's the best outcome for everyone involved. As for money, the family has plenty, and as your eldest sister, I'll personally ensure. You get a monthly allowance of 100,000. However, the second sister Mu Yanan clearly lacked that kind of patience. The disdain in her eyes was almost impossible to hide, and her words were even more venomous. Look, you're just some kid who grew up in an orphanage, be grateful. The fact that we're even willing to acknowledge you, second sister. Before she could finish her arrogant sentence, the other four in the car cut her off in unison, their warning glares speaking louder than words. Instead of getting angry, you actually felt a wave of relief, your lips curling into a mocking razor-sharp smirk. Now that's more like it. For a second there, I almost thought you were being sincere. Turns out this is just a convenient scheme, persuading me to return just so. You can fulfill whatever agenda you've planned. You had always been accustomed to assuming the worst intentions in others, with the sole exception of the Zhang family who treated you with genuine love. Stop the act. You dropped your smile and waved them off with bored impatience. Whatever your goals are, they have nothing to do with me. I'll say this one last time. Stop harassing me. With that, you turned away without looking back, continuing your casual stroll toward the wet market. As for whether they kept following you, you couldn't care less, watching your retreating figure vanish. The atmosphere inside the van dropped to absolute zero. Mu Wuxuang's face darkened as she interrogated her younger sister Mu Yanan. If you were the one swapped at birth for 20 years, how would those words have made you feel? Even the youngest Mu Yulu looked at her with cold alienation. So second sister, you're actually that kind of person. Mu Yanan's face turned a sickly pale green. It was the first time she'd tasted the bitterness of being ostracized by her own family. Meanwhile, you didn't give that little interlude a second thought. After meticulously handpicking the freshest produce at the market, you headed back toward the villa, lugging several heavy bags. The Mu family entourage followed silently in their vehicle. They were desperate to see where you lived, and even more curious to see how the legendary CEO of the Shenzhou group treated you. The car trailed you for nearly an hour, before finally coming to a halt outside the gates of Jiangdong City's most prestigious and luxurious villa district, watching the security guards at the gate treat you with such groveling respect and subservience. Even the habitually caustic Mu Yanan was left utterly speechless. Mu Wuxuang turned toward her father with a complicated gaze, her voice heavy with implication. Dad, you already knew about this, didn't you? Old man Mu let out a long, weary sigh, the memory of Zhang Yueyue fiercely defending you at the hospital flashing through his mind, as he finally revealed the bitter truth. That boy's girlfriend is Zhang Yueyue, the CEO of Shenzhou Group, and from the looks of it, they're on the verge of marriage. Those words exploded like a thunderclap in the ears of his three daughters. The Shenzhou Group. Wasn't that their primary objective for coming to Jiangdong in the first place? In that case, Mu Wuxuang started to speak, but old man Mu raised a hand to silence her, his voice dripping with exhaustion and defeat. It's useless. Your mother had the audacity to make demands like she was giving charity right in front of CEO Jiang. Our chances for this partnership are likely dead in the water. The moment those words were uttered, every gaze inside the vehicle turned bizarre, shifting in unison toward Mother Mu, giving orders in the presence of the Shenzhou Group's empress. Forget her, even Mu Wuxuang, the high and mighty CEO of Mu Real Estate, wouldn't have the sheer nerve to pull a stunt like that. Recalling your distant icy stare from earlier, Mu Wuxuang suddenly had an epiphany. A soft yet chillingly mocking sneer escaped her lips. 20 years of total neglect. And the moment we meet, we try to exploit him. Anyone would feel their heart turn to ice after that. What did I say that was so wrong? That sneer stung Mother Mu like a physical blow. She finally snapped, her voice shrill as she shrieked her defense. He is my son. Is it really too much to ask that he contributes a little to this family? Family Mu Wuxuang's tone was sharper than a blade. Has he ever benefited from a single cent or a moment of care from this family? It's been over 20 years. If it weren't for a stroke of luck, you wouldn't even know your own son had been swapped at birth. This brutal honesty shredded the last layer of her pretense, leaving Mother Mu instantly struck dumb. The interior of the car fell into a suffocating, deathly silence, as the sky began to bruise with the colors of dusk, breaking through the stagnant air. That familiar Maibach glided into view like a silent ghost. Old man Mu looked as if he were clutching at his very last straw. He violently threw the car door open, recklessly hurling himself right in front of the vehicle. Inside, Zhang Yueyue was lost in a daydream about her beloved little Mu. The driver's sudden emergency brake caused her brows to knit in immediate irritation. The moment she recognized that age-stubborn face through the windshield, the last trace of warmth in her eyes evaporated completely, replaced by a layer of absolute biting frost. Xiaoqin, her voice was eerily calm, yet it carried a weight of unquestionable authority. Get rid of him. Qin Wanying understood the assignment instantly. The door swung open, and she stepped out with an elegant yet distant gait, marching straight up to Old Man Mu to deliver a cold robotic warning. Sir, please clear the way. Otherwise, we will treat this as malicious obstruction and involve the police immediately. CEO Zhang, please give me just 3 minutes. I only need 3 minutes. Old Man Mu ignored her entirely, his gaze desperately piercing through the glass to lock eyes with Zhang Yueyue. His expression a pathetic mask of pure supplication. Zhang Yueyue let out a cold, sharp scoff and pushed the door open to step out. Her impeccably tailored professional suit sculpted her exquisite silhouette to absolute perfection. The moment she appeared, her overwhelming aura made the three Mu sisters inside their van gasp in unison, their eyes flashing with a mix of raw shock and burning envy. That brother they looked down on as a low-class nobody actually managed to land a woman of such peerless beauty. The clock is ticking. Zhang Yueyue glanced at her wristwatch with icy precision, her voice devoid of even a shred of human emotion. 3 minutes, go. CEO Zhang. Yesterday my wife was, well, she was ignorant. Please be the bigger person and overlook her folly. Old Man Mu stammered out his frantic explanation. But before he could even finish his sentence, a taxi screeched to a halt right beside them. A figure bolted out of the car, rudely cutting Old Man Mu off mid-word. His face was plastered with a nauseatingly sycophantic grin. You must be my beautiful sister-in-law, right? Pleasure to meet you. My name is Mu Chen. I'm your boyfriend's younger biological brother. Mu Chen's eyes shimmered with a gaze of unmasked greed, completely ignoring his father's ashen, livid face. He boldly extended his hand toward Zhang Yueyue. But Zhang Yueyue didn't even spare him a glance. With a chilling expression, the man who ruled Jiangdong's underworld Long Da had swallowed the city whole. And now you glared at the 6 members of the Mu family issuing a ruthless decree. Kick this entire family out of Jiangdong immediately. If I ever see them again, tell Long Da. He can go rot in a cell himself. Yes, yes, boss. Despite the biting November chill, Lao Si couldn't stop the cold sweat from pouring down his forehead. Even Zhang Yueyue and the 4 bodyguards nearby watched you with looks of pure horror. What on earth was happening? You actually had the power to make people vanish from the city with a single word. But before they could wrap their heads around it, the expression on your face flickered and transformed instantly. You turned to look at Zhang Yueyue with unparalleled tenderness. My queen, let's go. Let's just ignore these people. It's time to go home and eat. Zhang Yueyue was instantly spellbound by your gentle tone. She immediately tossed her earlier frustration to the back of her mind, nodding her small head enthusiastically. Little Mu, let's move out. And just like that, under the stunned gazes of the entire crowd, Zhang Yueyue threw her arms around your neck, cheering with pure, unadulterated excitement. You flashed a doting smile, gently sweeping her up into a bridal carry, as you turned and strolled toward the villa, leaving a trail of dropped jaws in your wake. Only after your silhouette had completely vanished did Lao Si finally let out a breath of relief. He walked up to the 4 bodyguards, then glared down at the trembling Mu Chen, with a sinister sneer. You've got some nerve, kid. Looking for muscle to lay a finger on my boss yesterday, huh? You've got a death wish. Then Lao Si turned back to the 4 bodyguards, his voice significantly more tempered. I'll be taking the madam's guards with me now. The boss gave the order, and I don't dare to disobey. To everyone's shock, those 4 burly men in black were also wiping away cold sweat, bowing and scraping in frantic agreement. You're too kind, sir. Since you're the big boss's right-hand man, that practically makes us family. Lead the way. At this point, it wasn't just Old Fourth acting tough. Even Qin Wanying and the driver were completely gobsmacked. These were supposedly CEO Zhang's elite bodyguards. Yet, why did they seem so chummy with your subordinate? Could your true identity be far more explosive than they ever imagined? By now, even old Mu had finally caught on to the vibe, glaring at Mu Chen with eyes full of pure unadulterated disgust. He pivoted instantly and began to walk away, not even bothering to waste another breath on the pathetic Mu Chen. Seeing this, the brat hurriedly